Hello and welcome to the very 18th episode of the second newest show on the Stat Check Network. It is time for episode 18 of Take All Comers. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Bortel, and I am joined by
Mr. Lukas Troller.
And today is the day of all days. Unfortunately, Mr. Nicholas Olson Johnson could not be here with us today, but we are here to break down one of the greatest tournaments in the history of Warhammer 40,000. We are talking about the inaugural run of Champions Cup 2024 and the run of the great team, the Rose City Ruffians. I am joined not only by Lukas, but if you can see on the screen, you can see there's an absolute cacophony of other voices, some of whom you may know, some of whom you may not hear today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jonathan Sebert, Mr. Alexander Pina, Mr. Maxwell Schwarzer, Mr. Stephen Trimble, Mr. Ryan Simpson Cherewich, Mr. Iansberg Swallow. It is a pleasure to have every single one of you here today. We're going to run through some introductions and get you to know these people. But before that, I got to check in with the boy. How you doing today, Lukas?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. It was an absolute disaster week at work, so I'm ready to just tune out and think about some Warhammer. And no, got a lot going on this weekend, so it'll be nice and relaxing. But yeah, really excited to talk about this tournament. It was an absolute blast. I know for most people in the call, it was like pretty much either their first team event or their first like big team event. Like maybe some of us have done, what was it, Brood War, or that kind of thing. So it was cool to get you guys all some exposure and kind of see the team's mindset develop over the course of the weekend. And there was a lot of excitement coming out of the weekend as well. So just very excited to kind of reminisce about all that with you guys and go over the experience. It was a lot of fun. How are you, Tyler? I know you've had you've had some serious life stuff recently going on. What the hell's been going on with you?
It's been a bit of a week, man. So yeah, we had Champions Cup. It ran Friday to Sunday. I flew home Sunday night. And then I got on a plane Tuesday night, barely over 48 hours later, and took that plane over to Barcelona, Spain, and took a train 6 hours from there to Granada, Spain, and then took a bus south of there another hour to Motril, Spain, which is where I am right now and where I will be living for the foreseeable future. I'm spending a year out here. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. And that may have happened in theory a week ago, but it feels like it's still happening. Big transition, very excited to be out here. Looking forward to doing a little bit of European coverage, as well as fraternizing with some of the enemies out here. But we're having a great time, and I'm really looking forward to talking about a little bit of 40K after not talking about 40K for a long time. So let's jump right into it. We're going to go through and give each of our lovely guests an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us the following. They'll tell us their name, they'll tell us how long they've been playing 40K. They will tell us what army they have decided to bring to the Champions Cup, what army we decided on to bring them as a team as part of the comp. They'll run through their list and they'll tell us a little bit about what the army is trying to do in the grant and scheme of things. I will go first, and Lukas will go last, simply to keep things a little bit neat and tidy here. You've met me. My name is Tyler Michael Dwayne Bortel. I've been playing 40K for 13 years? I don't know, a long time. But we're here now. And I was playing Necrons. And you may be wondering, Tyler, you're a big bugs guy in theory, and there's no bugs represented on this team at all. Looking ahead, what's going on with that? Well, my goal as formerly the captain of this team was to be as involved in the coaching as possible. Someone needs to be making sure that everything's going on track. If someone has a terrible catastrophe happen early on in the game, which, spoiler alert, happens from time to time, someone needs to be able to communicate that to the rest of the team and make sure we're all on the same page about how to recover from it. So I built the list that plays the least Warhammer humanly possible. We've got a stat rep going up with a variant of this list pretty soon once I can get through and fix that. But here's how it works. It's got 4.5 Catan, the Nightbringer, 2 Transcendents, the Void Dragon, and Xeris. And then it's got a Chronomancer and 5 Immortals for secret missions. It's got Illuminor Xeris. I said Xeris. It's got a Locust Lord and 3 Locust Heavies for killing my opponent's battle line units. It's got 3 Tomb Blades for scout moving and getting behind enemy lines turn 1. It's got 2 Solo Locust Destroyers, 5 Death Marks of Trash, and then a Reanimator to round it out. The reality of the situation is that puts a giant ball of Catan in one place, it goes off and holds some primary, and then it takes behind enemy lines and establish locus and just basically scores 85 points for showing up. If my opponent can't score more than 90 points, that's a draw. Period. Obviously, there's ways around this, and it's not always that simple, but that was kind of the philosophy going in, was that I can go for these really safe draws into basically anything that takes almost 0 clock on my part, and I can spend the majority of the round making the rounds and making sure we're all on the same page as far as who needs to push and whatnot for the game. So that was my role on the team. I ended up transitioning a couple times into some more pushing opportunities where they showed up, but that was the thought process, at least going in. I'll hand the microphone now over to my boy, John Sebert. How are we doing, Sebes?
Doing well. My name's John Sebert. I've been playing about 2 years or so. Got in a mid-9th edition. I played Votann, triple chunks, and the game plan was very straightforward. Shove everything at my opponent, and then use the big bricks of bikes, 6-man bikes, with the rotary and the suite of upgrades to clean things up afterwards. The list just wanted to brawl, and I had a blast. It was I played some jumpy around armies, Ret Cadre, Drukari, Grey Knights, no one that wanted to take a punch, but still had a great time. Pass it over to Alex.
I'm everywhere. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I've been playing 40K since roughly 9th. I think I'm on year 3 now. I brought sisters. I don't think anyone's touched on this yet, but we had this philosophy going in where we all wanted to skew kind of towards like T10 plus club. And so one of the really important parts of that was like, well, the sisters list that's doing really well is just doing that. And so it was a natural slot. And, sisters is such a strong army right now that we wanted someone to run it. And my other army is 1,000 Suns, and someone else was 1,000 Suns. Spoiler, I won't say who. Maybe it's in his name. But so Sisters was wide open, and I played Sisters all throughout 9th. So, the game plan was to, if I ever got a good meal, I would eat. And if I ever got 1,000 Suns, Necrons, Sisters, one of the other bullies of the meta, then I would hold the line. And we'll find out what happened. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, and Sisters are awesome right now.
Send it on down to you, Max.
Me next. Hey there, I'm Max. I've been playing Warhammer a bit off and on since 2008, but competitively since about late 8th edition. I ended up taking Imperial Guard to the tournament, which was really, really fun. It was the classic double Dorn 18 Bulgurn list with, mission play, etc. added onto it. It's a lot of fun to play. And the goal of my list was just kind of to blunt there and sit there and just bog people down and say, I'm going to draw you. And that's all I'm going to do. And it was really fun doing that, honestly. It was nice having a concrete set goal. It was fun. It was very, very fun. Over to you, SBeeve.
All right, I'm Steve. I've been playing, like, quote unquote playing since like the middle of 7th, but like competitively since like early 8th, maybe 2016, 2017. For here, so get into the history, like Alex said, is originally we were going to play Dark Angels with a bunch of Land Raiders, and that was just the worst list ever. So I switched to Custodes for a couple months, a bunch of Dreadnoughts, a bunch of Caldas tanks. There's a couple guys at the tournament who ran that, Mr. Spoiler for future Lukas game. And that was good, but I didn't feel any skill expression. I was just going to score 10s and 12s against anyone. So at the last moment, I switched to 30 World Eater Terminators with Angry Man, because that, within reasons, fit the bill of a durable army. Obviously not toughness skew, but they're very hard to kill. So I played a very different version of World Eaters.
Very nice, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So I'm Ryan Cherewich. I was the Death Guard player on there. I've been playing, I'm outing myself now. I've been playing since 97, but competitively since mid 8th edition or so. My role was to kind of similar to the way John played is to kind of bully the middle and just blunt some of the matchups and make people not want to play into what I had. It was tough, and it also had a crazy amount of DACA and could just table people really quickly. Things went not as I thought they would, so we'll see. Maybe talk about that a little bit. But I learned a lot from this event more than anything else. Yep. Ian?
All right. My name is Ian. I first started touching 40K, I think at the tail end of 7th edition, but I first started playing competitively at the tail end of 9th. So I'm a bit of a new kid on the block, so to speak. I was playing Thousand Suns, and similar to everybody else, I was running some big tough meaty boys. I had only 2 MVBs, but I replaced one with a wingless Demon Prince. And my role was to simply do T-Suns things, do a lot of mortal wounds, zap people, do the thing. A lot of people are scared of playing T-Suns, so it's just useful to have T-Suns inside of a team's environment and force people to not take me or to take me because they want some leverage inside of a team's environment. So that's what my role was. To Lukas.
All right, and hopefully viewers of the show know who I am. But yeah, I'm Lukas. I've played Warhammer for the last 13 or 14 years, maybe like 4 competitively. And yeah, I played Space Wolf Stormlance at Champions Cup, and my role was very much like a hunter in the team. So I got babied. I had the special priority. I got the fun shooting matchups that I could just Thunderdome, and or at least we tried to get me those matchups, and my list just kind of ate those up. So it was 18 Thunderwolves, some characters, 2 Vindicators, and then a bunch of Space Marine good stuff trash. So yeah, that was the list.
Oh, and
Absolutely.
one thing, my role was similar to Lucas's, where I was supposed to beat up people, and I, as we saw, some things happened.
We
Yeah,
kind of had
absolutely.
a bunch of big holes that kind of held the line, and then we had like the two tough Marine armies that went out and
Yeah,
tried to hunt, I guess.
we modeled our team comp, for those of y'all in the WTC know or who just listened to Innes talk a little bit too much, a little bit off of the way that Team Scotland used to run with Innes and Brian, where we have 2 absolute assassins in Lukas and Steve here who are playing lists that are just designed to run people over, and everyone else is basically playing for a draw. When we have the opportunity to get someone else to eat, we absolutely take advantage of it, and everyone here on the screen is capable of going out and putting up a big number if they really need to. But you'll see in the pairings a pretty consistent theme of 2 really big wins and a bunch of draws or small wins, with a couple notable exceptions. So that's going to be kind of the theme that we're going for here. As Lukas said earlier on, this is a little bit of a group of newbies, a bunch of red shirts here. We're really excited to be bringing out to a team's event. We definitely did not take the approach that StatCheck did with their team of getting the absolute bestest 40K playing human beings that you could find on the planet and then flying them all in. We wanted to bring in our locals. This is a crew of guys from Portland, Oregon, and our 2 boys here, Steve and Alex, from Northern Washington, Northern Washington. I don't know. From Olympia, Washington.
The South
so it was
Puget
really
Sound area.
wonderful. So we're really glad to rep the Pacific Northwest here, as opposed to repping people who are good at Warhammer. And I'm really proud of both the team that we put together based on that mentality and also our performance overall.
Damn, get
does anyone
fucking
wanna-
roasted, you guys.
I mean, might be accurate.
Someone here
Does
has
anyone
a-
want
here has a
to
IU.
share any? Would anyone like to share anything about their experience here on kind of the front end of their team's careers, or any expectations or worries they had on the front end coming in? What was it like coming into to the big team stage for the first time for anybody?
I can start. I had
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
I guess you could say anxiety slightly, where and it was kind of proven correct, where I had to perform, and if I didn't do good, because that was my job, if I didn't do good, then we just kind of get wrecked. So that was, the big thing.
For me, So I had one team tournament previous to this, but it was a 5-man. It wasn't an 8-man like this. And in that, we were super ragtag, totally not prepared. Didn't even have a matrix going into that, and we finished, I think, 3rd in that, which was kind of just funny, just bullying the way through that. But this one, I prepared a lot, and this is the first time I've been nervous for a Warhammer tournament in probably 3 years. And unfortunately for me, that actually kind of hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. So it made me reevaluate how I approach a tournament, and also practicing and learning, preparing, I should say.
Yeah, I'm gonna chip in too because I was also extremely nervous. The first teams event I attended was the Brood Wars thing up where I met pretty much, I think, almost every single one of you for the first time. And I was nervous back then, but that was like super manageable. This is the first time I went to like a large scale event where I felt like there were people who were depending on me, and so that my play had like there was more consequences to it than like, oh, I lost, I'm out of the running for getting first place. Not that I ever really thought I was going to get first place, but that's besides the point. Like if I'm losing my games by a lot, I'm letting people down around me, so I felt like a lot of pressure going into this, and in some ways I think the pressure got to me, but in a lot of ways I think that pressure helped me perform more, perform better. So you win some, you lose some.
Hell yeah, man. Before I get to Alex, I want to comment on Ian real quick. Give Ian a massive shout out for stepping in a bit of a dire time of need. 8-man teams is a really hard thing to logistically manage to make happen. Getting a full 8 people to all agree to be at the same place at the same time, halfway across the country, is really challenging when there's a lot of real life stuff that gets in the way of that. And, when one of your homies can't make it to the event normally, that's a bummer. But when they can't make it to the event in teams, that can be disastrous. You cannot play with 7 players. And Ian stepped in at the absolute, 2 seconds to midnight here, the very week of Let's Lock to step up as our T-Suns player. So he did not have nearly the time and opportunities to prepare that a lot of other members of this chat did, and we really appreciate him for coming in clutch there. So big shout out to Ian for that. Mr. Pina, you had some thoughts to share.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I wasn't super nervous, more so that I don't plan on stopping to play 40K anymore. I don't plan on retiring or anything. And it was really a cool opportunity, more so to just see how this works. Like you guys said, this is my first 8-man team event. And I always keep games close no matter what. It's just kind of my play style. And so being given hey, take this absolute dog water matchup and don't lose by a bunch. And I was like, that's just another day for me. So I was really excited to utilize that kind of play style and have it be celebrated instead of losing by 2 or 3 points. You're you did what you were supposed to do. And it was fun. I don't know. It was a really enjoyable experience for me.
I'm very different from you on that, Alex. As in singles especially, I'll take really big, stupid risks that are well, it'll win me the game by 50 points, or I'm gonna lose and score nothing. Which I really had to curb that at this event, because it was oh wait, if I only lose by 5 points, it's not the end of the world, because we have our predators out there in Steve and Lukas that will get those large wins. And honest to God, I am grateful to those 2 for taking those roles on, because like Steve said, those are high pressure roles. There's a lot riding on them. Playing for a draw was very comforting for me, and I knew that was my role coming in. And so I didn't have that anxiety, because I felt, what, I can play to a draw. I especially with this chunky army. And so a lot of it was I found a lot of comfort in having really good players on my team. Not saying I'm, fully relying on them and I don't want to pull my weight, but it was just, Lukas and Steve are a beautiful cushion. Let's put it that way. I love them both.
Yeah, Max. So to go back onto the needing to beat my opponent really hard thing you're talking about, is my normal singles play style is I couldn't give less than 2 shits what my opponent scores. If they're scoring 99, I'm still going to win because I scored 100. But obviously, I can, as I showed, I can change that philosophy when playing in teams, but it's just the complete opposite of how I normally play, where I have to give a shit what my opponent's secondaries are and have to actively stop them. instead of ignoring it like I normally do. So that's a big change.
Yeah, I knew my role going into it too. It was play for draws. If I get a good matchup, which I did round 2, spoiler, like make something happen. But like my third round, we'll talk about when we get there. I was the weirdest game of Warhammer I've ever played because I didn't do anything. Neither of us came out from behind our walls. We just waved at each other, swapped cards, and called it a day. It was strange, but that's teams. It was so cool. I knew I was one of the newer players on the team, so I kind of just was trying to absorb as much as possible, learn from everyone.
Hell yeah, man. You did a fantastic job. We're really glad to have you here with us today. So let's get right into some of the nonsense here. We're going to be trying a variety of wacky layouts to fit 8 people and some stuff on the screen. So be ready for that, y'all. So we are, of course, talking about Champions Cup. This is hosted in Dallas, Texas, as a sort of a conglomeration between Frontline Gaming and then also Stephen Corrales and his crew, and then also in partnership with Team USA. Sean Naden was the format specialist here. So a lot of different groups came together to make this event happen, and it's going to be happening again next year. Really looking forward to that. I want to start off with a bit of an event review. This is something we often like to do here. This was FLG's first time stepping into a Teams event, so there's a couple format things that are worth going over, and then get a little bit of review out of this as well. Can we start with you, Lukas, actually, throw to the other side? What were some of the big notables for this?
Yeah, I forgot we were doing this shit. So yeah, this was a 8-man Teams event held in Dallas, Texas at the Marriott. I think it was, so Dallas is like a super sprawling city, so there's like a bunch of sub-cities within it. I think it's in Allen. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
but it's on like the northeastern, corner of the city, basically. And yeah, Texas is weird. Us all being from, most of us have lived in the Northwest for a while now. It's definitely like a different vibe down there. So it was kind of fun to just like have a couple days of experience in another world, kind of.
That humidity though was not it.
Dude,
that was not it.
Yeah, that was bad. I felt like I was in a jungle, but it was also like scorchingly hot.
I'm used to humidity, and it was bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, Texas is wild. So yeah, and there was like 40 something teams, 60 something teams.
56,
56,
50, yeah, that sounds right. Mid 50s and the number of teams. So in the 400s in terms of players. So it was a nice big event. And yeah, teams from all over the United States and all over the world really came, and well, it's mostly just in the U.S. and a couple players from outside North America came and played in the Marriott. It was a lot of fun. What else is good God? Thank you. Yeah, so terrain format. There were so you have 8 tables, right? And then your middle table is like your pairings table, and then so kind of like behind the pairings table, there's 3 GW tables. To the sides of the pairings table, there's 2 FLG tables. And then in front of the pairings tables, there's 3 WTC tables, 1 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. So every round, there's like a nice mix of tables that people want. There was some initial criticism that the FLG tables were very light. Having played on them a whole bunch and having heard some other feedback, I don't actually think they were that light. But you can kind of see some examples here of the kinds of trains you were playing on. You got 3 different WTCs to choose from. You got 3 different GWs to choose from. And then the 2 copies of the FLG table, which ended up being fairly dense. Just the pieces were a little bit goofy. So, yeah. Any comments and thoughts on terrain, guys? I know we'll definitely talk about it a little bit over the course of, the game reviews, but any initial thoughts on the kinds of terrain we were playing on?
Yeah, the idea of a mixed terrain, I personally think is the best way to do it, because you can't just game one terrain format. And the ones they picked, I think, were good. There was no like weird WTC or weird GW ones. They picked the chattiest table 7 for GW, for instance. But on the FLG ones, I did think they were pretty bad in comparison. Not that they were open, they were just weird and hard to navigate and just like weird about everything. Like I had some issues the one time I played it is just I couldn't move Angron a lot, and not like a way that made sense so he can't move. It was just like it's hard to explain unless you play, and it was just awkward.
They're just as dense as a GW table, but they're
Mhm.
like more awkward to play on.
That's exactly what it is.
You can kind of, this is the strangest example because it doesn't have the phenomenon I'm going to talk about, but on the Search and Destroy and Crucible layouts, that large piece of terrain, that the biggest one that's kind of right in the middle right now, is actually fully flush against one of the board edges. So it makes things that you kind of think of staples of 40K, like Strat Reserve play, right? Like one of the quintessential aspects of 10th edition is you put an important unit in a Strat Reserve and you ingress it. That doesn't really work on those tables because you can't move your shooting unit past that angle to get a line of sight, and you can't move your melee unit around that piece of terrain to get a charge off when it's up against the board edge. So it just kind of breaks some of the fundamentals that you're used to, and I think that, at least from my perspective, was the weirdest part of adjusting to that table. There was plenty of places to hide on, but it was just strange.
My game too, there was this layout. It was almost impossible for us to move. I played against Grey Knights. It was impossible to move his Dread Knights and my tanks between those little gaps in the big building and the L's. Like it was like exactly the size of our bases, and it just didn't fit. And it was like you put anything there, you completely block the entire army, and it was really awkward.
Yeah, if I had to say anything, especially if you're listening and you haven't really done a mixed terrain or GW event, you play enough GW terrain layouts and it becomes intuitive. You're like, this goes here, that goes there, we stage here, it becomes, procedural. And then with the WTC stuff, it's a little bit more alien, but you can kind of see this is a staging point, this is that. The FLG, I know it's the first iteration of it. It's very unintuitive. There's a lot of, like, if you look at the picture right now, there's a 1-inch gap at the top ruin, which is like, what are we doing with this? And you like, it creates some amount of like instant fail points or like hand on stove moments where you're like, oh, I didn't even realize there's a hole there. And the guy's like, maybe a guy who plays Sisters is like, my castigator is shooting at you across the whole battlefield because you're backed up, stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with basically everything that's gone down here. These FLG layouts were an interesting thing to play around. I think one thing I will add is that we did not practice on them nearly enough. I think a lot of people got those hand-on stove moments because we all thought, oh yeah, it's kind of vaguely there, whatever, I'm probably not going to play on it. But 2 of us played on it every single round, so it happened. I didn't personally end up playing on it. I did the pairings, unrelated, I promise. But for everyone else who made it happen, there's some interesting things that were going on there, and I appreciate their commitment to trying something new. I will also say, when you're looking at these layouts, some things to keep in mind. The crates, which in this Crucible layout are kind of in the upper left there, are identical with the 4x6 plates, which are not included in the FLG set. They added these to make the sets a little bit more dense. Those are all 4x6 plates from a GW perspective, so you can move straight through them with anything, and they are obscuring ruins. The only thing that's weird about crates is that you don't get cover for standing directly on top of them. And the other thing to keep in mind is that also the forests are the same thing. You also move through them freely, and they also block line of sight. So a lot of these tables that may not look super dense on the board, once you recognize where the sightlines actually are, they're not nearly as open as I think a lot of people took them to be.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry about that. I just annihilated my microphone.
Great.
Which again adds to the unintuitive nature of it, right? Because we're so used to crates blocking movement.
Yep.
That's not how it works on FLG. So just strange.
Totally. All right. So let's jump right into our first round here. Now, FLG did a really good thing, which is that they gave us pairings in advance for the first round. All right, here's our little Brady Bunch layout, which is great. You should do that. We should do that at singles events, but you absolutely have to do that at teams events to give everyone at least a modicum of a chance at having a vaguely level playing field for preparation. And our first round of opponents were the Riverside River Swarms from Riverside, California. A very fun little foil to us in terms of name. They were a bunch of lovely people. One thing we'll add, almost every single person at this event was a phenomenal human being. And all of these teams overall were absolutely wonderful. So quality of player at this event significantly higher, both in terms of player skill and also sportsmanship, than I would say at any other rando event, which is one of the big appeals of teams to a lot of people. So this round, I do want to talk a little bit about pairings and about some specific eccentricities with the team that you'll see come up a couple of times over. This is our matrix. Oh, if it'll let me scroll. There we go, into them. And for those of you who haven't seen the USA style of matrices before, the sort of purplish color is a dead neutral draw. I'm actually going to flip back over to this layout so we can see things a little bit better. Yeah, it's perfect. Green and then blue are better and better. Orange and then red are worse and worse. Gray and then black are less and less predictable. So we've got us over here on the left and the opposing armies on the top. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit more actually so we can include that. Oh, and I think there's a button I can push to hide all this nonsense. There is. Amazing.
One thing I want to add, Tyler. You said black is unpredictable.
Yep.
But for me specifically on our matrix, black for me was not unpredictable. It was table preference for the future.
Absolutely. One of the big lessons that we're going to talk about again and again from this event is that table choice matters right now in 40K more than ever. And part of that is the mixed tables of this event, but part of that is also just the reality of Pariah and some of the tables that we're playing on. Steve in particular, I'll give him more of a chance to talk about this later, but his army is very much designed around getting a good table and getting to exploit that as a melee army, which is not a super traditional thing. And usually we expect shooting armies to care a lot about board choices and melee armies to just not want the super open ones. Steve has some very specific preferences that his list is built around getting access to. And when we were able to do that, his results they paid off, is the moral of the story. So looking at this matrix here, you can see some of these brighter colors along the top and the sides are indicating some of our best and worst rows and columns here. And one of the first things that I like to hone in on when deciding our pairing strategy is what is our scariest column? What do we need to be the most careful about, and how do we mitigate that problem? And in this case, that's definitely the Dark Eldar, right? We brought a very hull spam oriented comp, and we have a bunch of and they have a bunch of anti-hull pieces here. So Max is terrified of that. Sebert is terrified of that. Cher is terrified of that, and Alex is terrified of that. All of those can be a problem. I should be able to go through it just fine. Ian should be able to navigate it all right. But then Lukas and Steve, again, should get to run through it. The problem is we're probably not getting that into one of the opportunities that we have there. That's their strongest asset. If they're pairing optimally, they're going to be able to use it. So we got to be careful of that. So when picking out our first defender here, we have to be very mindful of the possibility that Dark Eldar gets thrown out. And there's two ways you can get around that. Number one, you can try to pick people who will avoid them. And a very common traditional way of picking your defender at any point in time is to pick someone with exactly one bad matchup so that they can reject that bad matchup and play something else. So for example, we could have first defended here with the Sisters, with Alex. Alex rejects the Dark Eldar, takes anything else, and now that's one less Dark Eldar matchup to worry about. The problem with this schema, and something that Lukas is often very quick to jump to, is seeing how you can use that against your opponent to get things to escape. So for example, here, one of our best columns right next to Dark Eldar is the Craftworld Eldar column. Almost every single person on this team has a good Eldar matchup. John, not as much. And Alex, that's not as much. He feels more neutral on that. But almost anyone else can eat there. And if we can get either Steve or Lukas into that Eldar, that's going to be fantastic. So if we first defend and Alex here, they could throw us Dark Eldar and Eldar. We can't accept the Dark Eldar, so we have to take the Eldar. And then suddenly, oh no, no one gets to play into the good Eldar matchup, and the Dark Eldar column is still scary. So we ended up making a different decision here, which was to put up our rock, John Sebert, up on the sacrificial rock to get that Dark Eldar matchup out of the way. Right. We know he's got first table pick. We know there's some very dense tables out there that he can hide his chonks on. We know that he can do what it takes. And of those four bad matchups, I think that is the one that I am the least concerned about, because he still has the firepower to really punish the Dark Eldar at range if they overexpose themselves. He can keep them a little bit more honest. So we end up first defending with John here. They attack him with that Dark Eldar, as well as, I believe, the regular Eldar. He accepts the Dark Eldar, walking into death with open arms. And we went on from there, and it worked out pretty well. So I'm going to pick some random people here. Alex, can you give us a quick rundown on where everybody landed? I will put it up right. Okay, here's those really close to the event. Our flag, we made us lovely flags, very nice to them. Alex, could you give us a quick rundown of where everybody landed?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
guys.
you want me to run okay, I'll just go
Like
through it.
literally man read slide.
Yeah, Tyler did really well. Like, I think way above what he thought. John did.
No. What are we playing against?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, classic world leaders. We've got Drukari. I don't know the flavor, but it's gonna have 3 Scourge units. 5 Catan Necrons. Space Wolves that had some amount of
Alex, this is a podcast. People cannot necessarily really see what's going on in front of them. Lukas, show everyone how this is going to work. What are our pairings for round one?
Round one, baby. Tyler is playing his Necrons into the classic 1975 World Leader list. We've got the Votann of High Call Siebes playing in Drukari, as he described as our first defender. We've got Alex's sisters playing a close game against their, 5 Catan Necrons. Our fourth player, Ryan's Death Guard, took on the Space Wolves. This was a Champions Rust list with some really unique units. It was a very cool list. We had Steve's World Leaders feasting against the Tau on his table choice. Surprise, surprise. And we've got Max's Guard getting a crushing victory against Eldar, which was awesome. Ian played his Thousand Sons into a guard list with a lot of Scions that I think was really cool and unique. And then I played my Space Wolves into a pretty bog standard Votann list.
Awesome. So in terms of predictions over here, you can actually see the full pairings process as laid out in the spreadsheet here. You can see that we started with John, and then once John had taken that Dark Eldar out of the way, and Alex had taken the Necrons out of the way, things open up a lot for Steve here, particularly once he's able to get access to that table choice. Steve, could you talk a little bit more about how your army functions around that, particularly around this table 7 that I know you were such a big fan of?
All right, so I think I did the same thing every game, where I reserved one squad of Terminators, and kept 2 on the board with Angron, and then all my trash, because my list was the 30 guys: Angron, Juggerlord, Invocatus, 2 Cultists, and 2 Spawn. So I had some flankers. So how it worked is, on these heavy boards like table 7, the big mean board, is turn 1 and 2, I can move up almost into their DZ and be unshootable. And the issue, I guess, for my opponents is World Leader Terminators aren't normal Terminators. They are very fast and they hit really fucking hard. So if by the time, if you can see, for instance, you see the 2 giant runes on the top and the bottom and the middle. Like, I would flank both my Terminator squads, top and the bottom, and they would just run into those ruins and behind the ruins, and they're literally unshootable for 99% of armies. And if they want to risk shooting me, they're somewhere right in the middle, and then they're getting wrecked, because World Leaders also have the best distraction card fix in the game of Big Bad Angry Man. So the plan here against Tau, for instance, was Angron yeeted forward. He went forward past their little 4x6 on the right and charged some dudes. Because a normal Tau list like he had, which was a Cayenne list with just a bunch of damage 3, low strength stuff, they can't really effectively kill Angron except with their whole army every buff. So I'm like, Angron's going to suicide in, take their whole army, and I'll have 30 unmolested Terminators in his backfield turn 2 and 3, which is what happened, because like I said, these Terminators one-shot almost anything they touch. So if you're getting charged by 10 dudes, who also get better if you kill 1 or 2 of them, because they get +1 hit if you kill 1, which is really good on flex their guns. They're really good at killing screens, as we'll see later in these events. And since they're also just a bunch of 10-mans, they're also really good just bowling you off primary, so I can make a wall around the objectives, which is bodies. But yeah, this is what I did to Tau. He was locked in his DZ. Most of his army was in the bottom right corner after Angron was there, and his 10 boys charging up next to him, and I rapid ingressed right in the middle behind that 4x6. So I had essentially 20 Terminators in the bottom right corner versus like 3 Riptides and a bunch of Hammerheads and 10 boys fighting the rest of his army on his home field. The issue, as I explained to him, is you can't really, because I defended this round. We defended me second, so I had the option. They should have picked this table early, because I had the option of forcing it. Yeah, that's really it. I just bullied him super hard. It was very similar to Spaceballs.
Good stuff there, Steve. So yeah, you can see how even just how important table pick is there. That, you know, in theory, you would think a guy running a pile of Terminators and a guy running a pile of high AP damage 3 shooting from long range would be an absolutely terrible matchup for Steve. And I'm sure that Tau player was giddy with delight when he got the opportunity to do that. If you don't consider all of the variables in the equation, you can end up in some really awkward circumstances. And a big part of Steve's list being something that people are not super used to playing into, and Steve being an exceptionally aggressive player when he wants to be, is that it would catch people completely flat-footed because they hadn't considered quite every variable, and you don't get to get caught flat-footed against Steve. That just doesn't work out. So coming back over to our predictions here, we walked out of this pretty darn happy. We got, like we said, we got Steve into a very good matchup. It says purple here, but this is actually not purple at all. This is very favored because we got him that table choice. We got Lukas into a shooting army, though he did not feel quite as positive into it. Lukas, can you talk a little bit about your matrixing philosophy? Because I feel like it changed a lot over the course of the event and tier. When it comes to things like Votann, and we'll see guard coming up soon. What was the journey of that like for you?
Yeah, I think it's mostly just centered around the fact that I'm kind of a conservative matrixer. Like, I'd rather slightly undershoot or slightly under promise and then over deliver than the opposite. But of course, like, as you gain experience with a matchup and become more confident in it, I think it doesn't do your pairings team right if you aren't honest about it, what you feel about a matchup. So, like, I started making the Votann matchups green. I started making the guard matchups green as I played more and more of them and gained confidence. But because I hadn't played any of those games coming into the event, or Tau even, like, I had a lot of those as purples, or maybe purples with upside, or maybe a small green or something like that, just because I didn't know the matchup. And then as soon as I played it once or twice and started understanding how favored it was, I'm like, okay, this is actually a very solid green. So yeah, I kind of just do that with all of my matrices, whether or not I'm hunting or I'm blunting. I would rather slightly under promise, and then once I've confirmed the result, I can, bump it up from there if I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a somewhat similar experience here with the World Leaders. I had not played that matchup with this particular set of Catan, and it turns out it is wildly favorable. A pile of damage 2 with fairly elite wounds that can't stand in too many places at once, and then is defensively like everything that a Locust Heavy Destroyer could ever ask for. Turns out gets absolutely murdered. This guy dumped his entire army at 2 Catan, killed one of them, and then got tabled. So it's important that you're updating your matrices over the course of the event based on new information that's coming in. The other game that really popped off here was Max into the Eldar. Max coming home with a 19. Nicely done there, my brother. Anything you want to say about that game, Max?
I mean, Eldar even with the indirect changes, Eldar just don't like indirect. You have 2 Basilisks. They're averaging about 14 shots each, 7 hits. You wound most of their guys on 2, so 6 wounds. Picks up about, 3 or 4 Aspect Warriors a turn, which is really, really obnoxious. If you get lucky, you just wipe out like 5 Warp Spiders, which is, Eldar just don't have a lot of stuff anymore after all those points changes. So it was not a nice matchup. Overall, it was a very favorable matchup for me. They also don't like killing Volgren, so
turns out nicely done. On the other end of the learning spectrum, we had Alex come back from Necrons, which he had down as a green with a 9. I know we talk about that some more, and we push that further towards the purple overall. We had Ian come back from guard with a 5, and this just totally flashback to me of against Team France, Brian Sipe coming back from guard, which he had down as a purple or a green, I don't remember which, with a 1. That guard T-Suns matchup, Ian, can be a little bit trickier than the T-Suns players like to think it is. What was your takeaway from that? What was your learning experience there?
Yeah, so I think that the more chassis, like the more holes that they're bringing, the easier it gets for T-Suns. This matchup, I mean, like we've all said, my role was like a blunting force. I just wanted to get a tie out of this, so I didn't really go as aggressive as I probably could have in this game. This particularly, I talked with Max after the game. There were some opportunities that I could have been way more aggressive and actually done more in the game. But with the way that the list was set up with a bunch of scions, it was really hard for me to hold my own objectives. Just a bunch of small bodies that would just walk forward, and they use their order to give themselves like OC3. And it's like, I can flame one, but if there's 2 units walking on my objective, I mean, even if I flame one, they have a 3-up armor. So like, am I killing the entire unit? Oh, they only need like 4 on the objective to steal it from me. So it's like, yeah, it's just so brutal to hold my own objectives in that matchup. So that was harder than I thought it would be.
Good stuff there. And then Ryan, I know that Spacehole's list ended up being a bit more scary than it seemed like in the front. Was that mostly about it being a Champions of Rust? Had you gotten experience into that detachment before?
I had played Champions of Rust once before, and the Feel No Pain on them totally changes the math on killing them. And I kind of factored that in, but really what I should have factored in that I didn't factor in was who goes first. He went first. That flips the matchup. It should have been a flip based on who goes first, because if he goes first, what happened here is he jailed me. I essentially tabled him. He had a squad of scouts and a rhino at the end of the game. But by the time that had happened, I couldn't get out of my deployment zone and score enough points. And then he also inadvertently blocked my secret mission that I had run for this. He missed a charge on somebody, and a guy ended up right in the middle of the deployment, or maybe he made the charge, but it ended with a guy right blocking one of my war dogs. He thought I had the secret mission to go run into the deployment zone and score points, but I was actually doing he thought I had the 3 objective one, but I was actually doing the run into the deployment zone and score points. And because of that, it screwed me over on getting the secret mission, which would have flipped it to 11-9. But that was me trying to recover from already being in a bad position because he got first turn, and I didn't consider how that would affect me.
Totally. Good lessons by all here. We wrap this round up pretty darn positive, walking out 99-61, which is feeling pretty great. But there are a lot of sharks in the water, so we're going to move on down to our next round over here. And we're gonna these will not all. We do not have enough time to spend half an hour on every one of these. So we'll blow through these a little bit quicker, and I'll just try to highlight a game in particular that I find interesting.
These are the pictures I was talking about, how I would usually deploy my army. So there's another picture you can skip. Oh, I didn't take too much pictures. It's only, I don't know where it went. But yeah, that was it. That's how I position my models usually. There's one big break at the top, one big break at the bottom, one in reserve, doing a flanking maneuver.
Very nice. All right, and here we've got Lukas honing in to run over some short men, unfortunately.
The dog's ready to pounce, baby.
Oh yeah, sweet. So round 2, we got to pair into the Emerald Dreams, which is a team captained by a good friend of the show, Vyasser. He is a coach on Team USA, and he is a phenomenal human being, just one of the absolute brightest rays of sunshine in the 40K community. Had a wonderful time playing into these guys. Ian, could you give us a quick rundown of who everyone paired into over here?
Sure. So Tyler ended up pairing into some Death Guard. John ended up into some Chaos Knights. Alex was into a mirror matchup of Sisters versus Sisters. Ryan had to play against some Grey Knights. Steve's War Leaders absolutely dunked on some Drukhari. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. Max had to play against some Tyranids. I had to draw against some Kalyon Tau, I think. Kalyon? Well, it was Kaori Retcod. And then Lukas had to play against some Guard.
Very nice. So yeah, overall, all this pairings went and super solidly. This was like everything working exactly according to plan. We got Steve, Eve, and Lukas into matchups they wanted. Steve, you want to talk a little bit about this Drukhari situation?
Oh, we had a very funny. They showed us their matrix after the fact. So this showed the power of my list, where every single team underestimated it. I expected that going into, and it proved. So in their matrix, they had 5 greens and 1 teal, which is a 20-0 into me. I'll let you guys guess who that teal was, because they hunted this matchup. He was half right. There was a 20-0. It's because he didn't understand how Terminators worked. He's like, I'm gonna charge my 10 incubi into your, they got 4 rerolls and everything, blah blah blah, into your Terminators. I'm gonna kill all of them. I'm like, even with without
-1 damage, bruh.
This is without -1 damage. So I am like, I can -1 damage here, or I can heroic intervene this Juggerlord that's with 5 incubi charging. I'm like, I have a 5 feel no pain. He's wounding off 5s, or 6 of feel no pain. I'm like, you're not gonna kill. You're gonna kill like 4, 5 if you're lucky. He killed 4, and then he wasn't happy about that. He would, like, he shot his Scourges, would kill a guy or 2. I'm like, that just makes my unit better. You killed the dumb Lightning Claws. I now hit you on 2s with my funny gun. Die Scourges, die other Scourges, die stupid Mandrakes. It was just a thing where, like, Lilith, anti-infantry murder, charges in with all her buffs, kills like 4 guys, and then the 4 guys punch Lilith's squad into next week. It's just a thing of, Drukari's really good at killing Marine bodies, but not 6-up feel no pain Terminator bodies. And that's it. He scored like, I think it was like 100 to 30 or something, 140 or something. You got beat up real bad.
Makes sense. And this year marks the inaugural run of the Lukas running over the guard routine, which is going to become a bit of a staple here. How do you feel about the guard matchup, having played it like 5 times now, Lukas?
Is good. So yeah, I played it repeatedly on the fucking stupid FLG table too, which just I was already tilted going in, but I'm like, this actually isn't that bad, because the Wolves have the speed to hop from one awkward piece of terrain to the next one. So even though my strat reserve flanking maneuvers were kind of stymied a little bit by the awkward pieces of terrain, he basically wasn't able to leave, the halfway mark on the table. I throttled him for the entirety of the game, and I did all my guard opponents. So he was a great player, and he tried his best. He was using the heroic intervention with Bulgrin very wisely. He was like trying to absorb the charges with Chimeras and Hellhounds, and then leap the Bulgrin into combat with like a preemptive +1 to hit order set up, so that he could like hit me harder. And that was very smart. It made my go turns a lot scarier. But like AO still kind of shuts that down. Vindicators are very good into them. You just hit them with enough wolves, and they eventually start dying. So yeah, it was cool to kind of confirm that matchup is very favored.
Very nice. And the rest of the way down, we're looking at a whole bunch of beautifully executed ties. Nice job to everyone there, with one beautiful shining exception. Mr. Sebert, we got you to eat this round. I'm really glad we got you to eat at least once this weekend. Talk us a little bit about Chaos Knights.
Yeah, that was a really comfortable matchup. On a comfortable table, it was GW1. So it was like something I played a ton against a faction. There are tons of Chaos Knight players around here. I knew the list. So it was like, I knew it to token. The more bigger knights, the better. He only had 1, but it was the Lancer. And I was like, I know you have a 4-up invuln, but I have a lot of guns. And I got to go second, which was the only time this tournament I got to go second. But I just positioned, prevented his reserves from coming in with a couple well-placed E-champs, and then waited for him to come out. When he did, I picked up like half his army. Yeah. And that was it. That was the whole game. It was really fun.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I love the guy.
It's really fun to know that you're having the blunting roll and do your job well, but every once in a while you get to like get that one feast matchup. Like Max had that in round 1 where he just Thunderdomed the guard, which was awesome to see. And then you also just had the limelight there and just smacked that CK guy, which is also cool to see.
Yeah. As y'all will see going on, the general strategy of Lukas and Steve get wins, everyone else gets ties, works. But when you can get one more guy who can really show up and pull off a win by getting them just the right matchup or on just the right table, the scales become irrecoverably favored toward our boys here. Anyone else have anything they really want to say about this round before we move on to round 3? Alex?
2 things. My opponent was awesome. I love it. It was very interesting. Our lists were almost identical. He had, I think, he didn't have the Paladin combo. He had 2 units of Seraphim, and in his mind's eye, that pushed the matchup into a green, which I think is a very interesting approach to the mirror. And then in the true form of high sportsmanship, he was trying really hard at the end. I was like, no matter what, we're getting a 10-10. He was like, can you beat me? I just need to know. And so I beat him by 1 point. And I was like, if this is what you need me to do, buddy, I can do it. But no, it was awesome. It was a great time.
Hell yeah, man. Great stuff. Awesome. So,
Right,
We
Alex
finished-
begins his purgatory tie run for the weekend.
yeah. One of the rules on Team USA that I absolutely incorporated into our pairings process here is we always take mirror matches whenever they're offered. You always bet on your boys. If they brought better players than we did, that's unfortunate. But we always give our guys the opportunity to shine, and there will be a lot of mirror matches this weekend. That's just the first one of them there. So shout out to Alex for showing him what's what and coming out with that moral victory. I will say, if you are newer to teams, this is the thing that does happen pretty regularly, where it is bottom of 5, and the person who is going second is losing by less than 5 points, and they are scrambling to figure out a way that they can win, and it's maybe possible that they could win, again, by less than 5 points. Stop playing. It's a 10. It doesn't matter. Get some rest. This situation happens all the time. Make sure that you're actually playing for a differential and don't sweat super hard for 20 minutes between losing by 2 and winning by 4. Doesn't make a difference. Sweet. So that brings us down to round 3 over here, which after at the end of day 1, we're feeling pretty fantastic. We are undefeated. This is 2 rounds a day for 3 days, which is the only reasonable way to run an 8-man teams event. You could try to do 3-2 GT style and like really hit the ground, but each of these rounds is 4 hours. Yeah, each of these rounds is 4 hours, which we'll talk more about things like that later on, but I feel like is a very reasonable amount of time.
I ain't
Particularly
playing 12 hours of 40K in a day.
Fair enough, Max. Particularly in an environment where you're having to build a lot of these matrices on the fly. Obviously, we were able to build into the Riverside River Swarms well in advance, but we had to assemble our Emerald Dreams matrix over the course of lunch. There's a lot to do there. We got some photos. I'm going to get us out of the way here so you can see. Here's Alex and Steve being on the wrong side of the table. Steve, get back over here. You're cheating. Stop it. And there's Schwarzer in his lovely captain's hat. Managing things for them. So shout out to the Emerald Dreams boys. They were an absolute joy to play against.
The Astra was an absolute gem. Such
Oh,
a fun game. Great energy.
Here's the Drew card. It's like turn 3 or whatever. But this is another thing of just like what I would do. Like the red boys are top left. Blue boys were bottom and transferred to the middle. And then Lukas's Night Lords, always rapid ingress, came in, fought the Incubi to death. And this is like the second game of every game where they underestimated my shooting and it bit them in the ass. We'll get back to that in the CSM.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also mention, you can see here, the objectives are wacky because we are playing the Ritual here. And the Ritual is an incredibly drawish mission in general. You can pull draws out of things that you never thought you could on the Ritual. And that really informed our pairings process here. It was absolutely necessary that Lukas and Steve get matchups that they could push into and that they push into them as hard as they possibly can. We were able to walk out of some scary situations with 10s here, but also they definitely had the opportunity to pull some of this back down to neutral. So getting some chances to really table people was a big deal for us over here. Let's keep it grooving. This brings us into our round 3 in the morning into Sanctum, which, spoiler alert, is an absolute heartbreaker of a finish, as we got just this close but end up falling ever so slightly short. John, could you give us a quick rundown of the pairings into Sanctum here?
Yeah, we got the Necron Mirror. I took on Tau. It was Ret Cadre. Sisters into Thousand Suns with Alex. Ryan to Death Guard into Custodes. Steve went into the Black Templar Horde. Max took on CSM. I think that was Raiders.
It was the Cursed Cultist list.
Oh, the Cursed Cultist, ACDC. You got T-Sons into Sisters. Ian took that on. And Lukas went into Andrew. I'm not sure.
Oops.
Lukas went into guard again.
Fraction Andrew.
Fantastic. So once again, you can see as kind of per usual here, we're looking at a whole bunch of ties. Now, this pairing process, I will put the matrix back up just to show how much of an absolute terror that Black Templar's list is. I think it was Castro's idea that the nickname for this list is 101 Dalmatians. If you haven't seen it just yet, it is a sight to behold. We've got 5 full squads of 20 Primaris Crusaders with a plethora of characters giving them some really scary buffs. And then just a couple of support pieces, but really it just is 100 dudes. This list gave Team USA absolute fits when France brought it to Belgium for WTC this year. Olivier, a very famously won War Masters and then won WTC with this list, so it is real scary, and a bunch of us want nothing to do with it, particularly myself and Ian. But we felt that Max, Steve, and John could all handle it fairly well, and we were able to get Steve into it, which was a real big deal here. The other games that went, most things here went fairly according to plan. Max, I know you had a pretty interesting experience here with the cast base experience. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts going into that beforehand and how that game ended up shaking out in practice?
Yeah, I was initially I was kind of worried about it. They're relatively fast. They have blood surge every time you shoot them. So initially I was like, oh no, this ain't it, Chief. They're just gonna blood surge me as I try to kill them, and then they'll lock me up, and it'll be a very sad day. But Steve pulled me aside and said, Max, you just shoot them to death. Just shoot them. And I was like, but then they blood surge me. He says, no. You basilisk 2 squads. He's gonna scout up another squad, and you just shoot them in the face. And I said, okay. I trust Steve. I'll do this. And I did it, and hot damn, did it work. The blast is a funny rule. Rogel Dorns do shoot hard. Basilisks are funny. And to be fair, I did scam the guy twice in Overwatch. Killed. I softened up a unit of possessed with some basilisks. They popped out, then my Scion squad hosed them. Killed him in Overwatch, and then later on a Predator drove up trying to hit some guys, and a Rogel Dorn overwatched it and killed it with just its multi-meltas. So that always helps, but overall it felt like a very good. I felt pretty in the driver's seat for that game.
Lethal hits, baby.
Oh man, that's crazy. So yeah, the final score of this ends up being 85-75. You need 86 points for a win. 85 points is a draw. So every single one of us left some amount of points on the table. Anyone could have seized this, but we all end up falling just a little bit short. I know that I played the sweatiest 10-10 hyper crit mirror of my life, as he has the Silent King and I have Catan, but we managed to somehow make it work. Anyone else have a game that they want to talk about here from the round into Sanctum?
Well,
I do. Nope.
I'll go Ryan first.
No, Steve, go do yours.
Okay, so yeah, I obviously played the big meme army. And it was a big meme army, and I played on the big meme table, the FLG board, which, since I had board, since I'm always defending, this was one of the few matchups where board didn't matter at all. If anything, it was actively better for me to get a more open board because I actually have some amount of guns, and he had none. So I'm like, I'll just take the shitty ass FLG board, so someone else doesn't have to take it, which actually did bite me in the ass. So he was tabled on turn 3. I had killed 99% of his army, and we were playing Persephone, it was called. So I had to actively keep things alive because my score was really bad for the first 2 turns. Because obviously, if you have 250 OC in your army, you're not really scoring too much primaries and secondaries until you kill them. So that's what I was doing. So I'm like, I need to catch up. My primary was like 8, like 4, 8, 16, 16, 12 or something. So I spiked up. But so yeah, there's not much to say about the army because it doesn't do anything except try and kill you with chainswords, and those chainswords really hate things that are higher than strength 4 and AP 1 and 2 up save. So, but on turn 5 he was killed everything. On turn 4 I left 1 model alive, which was his dumb chaplain, and Angorn was fighting him, and I was playing on the stupid FLG board. So the FLG dumb 12 by 12 box is 3 inches off the board edge, and Angron is 3.5 inches wide. So he just fell back from Angron behind a wall. The Angron couldn't follow him into. And I had scored exactly. I was negative 2 points on primary. I scored 48 or 38 primary, whatever my negative 2 primary is. So I need to kill that guy because I was literally 1 point away to get +1 differential from 17. And yeah, that stupid ass triangle, that right there, bottom. So I had spawn that were close, kind of, 16-inch move, +1 to charge, close. They needed 8-inch charge. They made it. I rolled like 14 attacks and they got like 5 hits. I was like, my spawn, why you do this? But yeah, so I lost at 1 point because the dumb board cocked my Angron. Like I could have it's all like dumb hypotheticals. Like, yeah, instead of Angron being there, I could have transferred him turn 3 with some Terminators, so the Terminators could have killed the dumb Chaplain. Exactly, because I also didn't expect him to literally have 1 model alive on turn 4, because I've never played this army, and everyone's like, this is the scariest army in the game. I'm like, I don't think I want to kill him in 2 turns, and then I did, so I had to actively slow down and not kill him because Purge the Foe is the funniest mission ever. But that was it. So it was really annoying that I could have scored that 1 differential, but funny FLG board got me. So if I picked a better board, because I had board preference, I probably would have actually scored closer to 20, if anything. Maybe not 20, probably like 18.
Yeah, for sure. I sit down, Steve. The second part of this table thing that you'll see over and over again is that even when people got table pick, they did not always know what they wanted. It is incredibly important to be practiced into every single table on every single layout if you're going to be able to make those kinds of decisions and take advantage of that opportunity presented to you. So big shout out to Steve for going and smashing someone that a lot of us were scared of, but also definitely a good learning moment there to realize what exactly it is he needed. Cher, did you say you had something to share about this?
Yeah. So this is kind of along the lines of what Steve just said with the board thing. This is when I realized that I was in trouble with my army, I guess, this is the only green matchup I think I had in our matrix for this matchup, for this round. And I got the green matchup I wanted, but it because of the board, he had board choice and he picked the board, and he had 2 Caladius grav tanks and I couldn't get anywhere near them. And turn 1, I left a sister squad alive on 1 wound, one of his little girls, and that turns him to get and kill more where I didn't get anything. And so I was behind on primary, and with that change up, it completely shifted it. And if I had the right board, I probably would have helped me a lot on that. Also, this is the game now. Looking back at it, I realized that I practiced wrong going into this event. I was practicing all of my bad matchups. I played Ian 4 times into Thousand Suns, and I played a couple other things. I was practicing all my bad matchup, and that was the dumbest thing. I should have practiced all of my neutral and good matchups, because that's what I'm most likely going to be getting. Instead, I practiced a whole bunch of stuff I never got, and then the matchups that I thought I would be good at, I hadn't had the reps into on the different tables, and so I didn't have them set up correctly, and it really showed with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that this is a problem writ large in teams preparation. I know we had this problem with WTC this year, where it can be really challenging to find a top caliber player to play you in a matchup where you are going to batter them. Right. The difference between playing someone in a matchup that's favored for you and getting a 12 and getting a 16 is absolutely massive. And it is not a thing that you're going to do very often without practice into the right caliber of opponents. But who exactly wants to go sign up to sit on TTS for 4 hours and walk out of there with hopefully a 6? It can be a little bit tricky to find in that practice. But you're right. It is absolutely crucial and something to look for in the future.
Yeah, to be a good teammate, you really got to be able to play both, be willing to play both good and bad matchups. That's just essential.
Absolutely. So yeah, walking out 85-75, bit of a heartbreaker there. Do you have something to add, Alex?
Oh, that's just an alien concept to me. I think, I don't know, I love playing doomed matchups. It's just a lot of fun to be like, okay, this is gonna suck really bad, but maybe if I do things right, I do the opposite where like this is an orange or this is the bottom half of purple, and it's like, oh, if it's a 7, 13, 8, 12, and you get a 10, 10, you're adding 2 points to your thing. So it's, I don't know. There's no ego in a team's event. I mean, there is, but there's not. It's just, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just surprising to hear this phenomenon.
Or you could get a tie every single time. That would be really new for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like I don't mind playing the bad matchups, and like I anticipated taking some bad matchups, but I just should have practiced my good matchups beforehand and just like had that a little bit of an edge in those matchups.
Yes, absolutely. All right, sweet. So that brings us to the halfway point of the tournament. We are 2-0-1, which means we are absolutely still in the hunt. It's very rare at a team event, especially a team event of this size, that anyone exits perfectly true undefeated. Now, in this case, Stat Check did, but they're playing I think someone called them the Harlem Globetrotters earlier. They are just out here flexing everyone else. So we're still in the fight for second, as it were. I want to take a quick moment to do a couple of plugs here. If you're joining us and you've made it this far into the show, you probably really enjoy the work that we do and would like to be a part of a community that has more of these conversations on a regular basis. If you want to keep the conversation going, head on down in the description to patreon.com/statcheck. For $5 a month, you get access to the most happening Discord on the internet for Warhammer 40K, where you can talk with myself, Lukas, and some of the other members of this team who are in there. If you're looking to take it a step further, you can get coaching from myself, Lukas, or some other members of our community. Mr. Olson Johnson offers it. Innes offers it. We just shook up who it is. I think Pumba still offers it. So if you're interested in that, check out stat@check.com/coaching. And if you want to get any of our merch, we've got that linked down below as well. We'd also like to take a second to thank our sponsors, in particular Red Dragon Games, our patrons, and get 20% off their entire store at red-dragon.ca. We've got Saltire Games over at etsy.com/uk/shop/Saltire Games. They make a lot of cool stat check oriented widgets and whatnot. That's as well as things that are not as stat check oriented but may still help you out in game. If you're looking for some wonderful WTC style terrain, Wayland Yutani is the official provider of terrain for the World Team Championship, and they offer their stuff at good prices at their website. Link below. Use the code StatCheck5 for 5% off. And if you're looking for GW style US Open terrain, check out J15 Games, who make some awesome stuff on Etsy at etsy.com/shop/J15 Games. 10% off with discount code StatCheck. Thank you all of our wonderful sponsors. We could not be here without you. Moving on, it is the second half of day 2, and I believe this is where things get a little bit messy in terms of logistics and practicalities here. The food at the venue was certainly convention food.
Shit.
And we made it work day 1, but day 2 we were not about that. But we are, of course, in the middle of a strip mall because it's Texas, and you are never more than 30. You're never more than 5 minutes from a strip mall in Texas. So we went out for some Tex-Mex for lunch, and we had an idea of who we were playing, and it turns out we were wrong. We were actually playing Team Quebec, who we were very surprised is to see waiting for us upon our return. Here's some of these lovely photos. You can see Lukas squaring off against the guard. And as previously mentioned, you can see he's really taking advantage of that FLG piece there, those weird crates plus 4x6s that all the wolves just go right on through while being super safe from the scary guard shooting beforehand. So Team Quebec was an absolute menace this event. I think they opened the event with like a 156. Was that right? Yeah, horrifying. These are all a bunch of guys who are here to play teams, which is great. They don't play a ton of singles. They were highly underrated in terms of ELO going into this, and they were absolute incredible human beings. This was our absolute favorite opponents of the weekend. They were wonderful. I'm sure people will share stories about them and their games over the course of it. But starting off with the actual pairings themselves, Pina, you want to redeem yourself and run through the setup here?
Yes, I would love to. So Tyler versus Eldar. John's Votann is versus Drukhari. My Sisters is versus a Hypercrypt. Ryan's Death Guard is versus Thousand Suns. Steve's World Leaders versus Chaos Space Marines. Max Guard versus Nids. I believe it's Crusher. I could be wrong. Ian's
Crusher,
T-Suns. Ian's T-Sons versus Imperial Knights, fun flavor, and then Lucas's Wolves versus Guard.
Alrighty, so this right here is the only round of the event where I am a little bit bummed that I did not quite measure up to what I was looking for here. Eldar cannot kill Catan, but we were playing 6 objectives taken hold. I set up some pretty straightforward or more conservative plays based on the idea that Lukas and Steve are going out there for big wins, and things end up slipping in a couple places. He has some god tier draws as toward the end there, and I have like a 7-layer contingency plan fail all the way through, and I end up at a 9, which should be a green matchup, which is a bummer. But we did absolutely pick up some really big points here, both from Lukas and Steve. Lukas pulling off a full 20-0 into the guard this time around, and Steve picking up a full 18-2 into the CSM. Who would like to talk about the games? Anything fun and exciting happening here into the Quebec? Has anyone got some good Frenchman stories?
I can talk about my game just because it was such a huge swing. One quick note, I did make a mistake making the slides. John played against Grey Knights, not Drukhari, although the score is accurate. He did get a 10-10.
I was going to say, John, what happened? I thought your Drukhari matchup was so bad. I don't remember this at all.
He fixed it. 25 extra points, baby. Yeah, so no, I played against Guard. Despite the fact that this was my biggest Guard result, I don't think it was very reflective of the player's skill. I played against John Winter Russell. Fantastic player and a really nice guy. And afterward, he was like, dude, I feel so bad. I didn't give you a good game. I'm like, yeah, I scammed you mega hard, man. Like, this was the scammiest 40K I've played in months. Like, every single opportunity. Yeah. Oh my God. Every single opportunity I had to fucking beat this guy into the ground, everything went right for me. It was wild. But it was really fun. He had a really unique list that was very Scion heavy. In particular, using something that Max showed me originally, which was Scions coming out of, I think it was Scions you were using, Max, coming out of the Torox Prime to get rerolls to wound. That unit with reels to hit and wound is really disgusting, especially, yeah, it's really goofy. And then you combine it with the command squad for the sustained 1, right? So like this unit puts out an insane amount of shots. And I'm like, every single time I should get shot by one of these, I should lose like 4 wolves. What if I lost to 1 instead? Thoughts? And that just happened like repeatedly for 3 turns. And I'm like, okay, well, you're tabled now, buddy. So yeah, that was insane. But really fun gaming. That's a really fun opponent. And that score ended up being big for us.
Big shout out to John, who's in the chat here. Thank you for donating $6.99 Canadian cents. Says he got diced by Lukas. Great game. Glad you had a good time while that happens.
Yeah, and I'll talk about my game before we talk about the weird games we had. So I played against ACDCs. This is one of only 2 games I went first, which is great because going second is really good in Prab, but World Eaters hate going second. The blood type table sucks ass when you go second. So I went first, and he made his actual biggest mistake is he positioned slightly far behind his DC, but not that far away because he knew I'm not that fast, but I am very fast. I moved 19 inches to turn 1. And we were playing on the cool deployment zone, search and destroy, whatever, so we're 18 inches apart. Or like even like closer on like diagonals. It's like 15 inches or some shit. So he made a wall of normal cultists in front of his accursed cultists. So it's like if I can't charge into and only melee his accursed cultists. But he didn't think of just normal moving a squad of Terminators very fast because it's 7 + 6. So I went 13 inches on turn 1 with a scout, and they got the angle. And they shot all the cultists dead on turn 1. And then the Invocatus, Angron, and the second squad of Terminators charged into his lines of turn 1, charged 2 Cursed Cultist squads. I one-shotted 1. I half-shotted the second one. And I lost like 8 Terminator in response. Like a whole ACD squad did like 2 damage to Invocatus. Hitting on 4s, winning on 5s with 3-up save. Not too good versus that guy. So he was already like essentially half his army was tabled before he took his first turn because of just he missed position on turn 1 and didn't respect my shooting. So he was trying to claw back for the rest of the game. We had a really funny Rhino explosion on his turn 1. It died to a it tried to fall back, killed itself. It did about 25 mortals to me and him. That's the reason. That's actually the only reason Angron died. He would have lived throughout the rest of the game because he was in his line. He couldn't fight him, so he was gonna have to ignore him. But he died to a grenade plus an explosion, so it's funny. But that was just the game. He got jailed as the Space Wolves do on turn 1, and he couldn't call him back because of just he misdeployed versus the funny Terminators. That was the game where I lost the most Terminators. So he killed 18. The most I lost is 5.
The shooting, man. The shooting from the Termies is real good.
It's so good, dude.
World leaders, they're a shooting army. Look out for it.
I think I probably need to chime in a little bit on this round because this round was a funny one for me.
Appreciate that, Ian.
Yeah. All right, fine. I admit Magnus died turn 1. It's not a good time. It was not a good time. Magnus died, and then the rumors started to go around on all the tables, like, oh, that T-Suns player, they lost Magnus turn 1, and just like hearing like that go around, dude, it sucked. It was depressing. I mean, the rest of the game was wonderful. Like, my opponent was wonderful. I don't remember their name. I apologize, but my opponent was wonderful. But yeah, this game was pretty taxing for me. I think up to this point in the events, I was getting some semblance of like my confidence being wavering because I had underperformed on now twice on my matrix, and on this one I just got absolutely blasted out of the water, and I don't know, I felt like I was kind of letting the team down. Whether that be true or not, that's how I felt at the time. And after the game I had to kind of like take a walk multiple times because I just couldn't really exist within like that environment, because that was a hard game. It was a hard game, and I felt like I was letting everybody down. But I think the takeaway I took from that game is that emotional low, like I genuinely felt like I was going to cry at multiple points in that game because I felt like I was just that guy. I was the loser. Yeah, being in a team environment and having nobody really judge you for it, like shit happens. I don't know. It was really touching in a way that I still felt like people trusted me to perform on day 3. And the low performance here kind of drives the rest of the event for me to really, really focus on like scoring what I can and to like not let it affect my performance moving forward. So that was my experience this round.
I would like to chime in also on this.
Oh yeah, Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm the flip side on this for this matchup because I played against Magnus and I couldn't kill Magnus. I killed all of his played Louis. He was amazing. I killed all his Vortex Beast on turn 2. He jailed me after that. I got stuck in my deployment zone, but I put Magnus down to like 4 wounds on like turn 3 and then shot into him and tried to charge him, and I couldn't kill him turn 4. And he just killed my entire army until I had nothing left on the board and finally killed him in Overwatch or something stupid like that. He died on the last turn and it didn't matter at that point. I had already lost. But yeah, the flip side of Ian losing that in turn 1, I couldn't kill it on my side. But then also to what Ian said, yeah, we came and gave him a group hug afterwards because it was not his fault. These things happen. These are games. There's nothing you can do about it. I have been playing and have been on this team with you guys for an infinite amount of time, and this is the worst performance I've ever had in my life. So totally not on you. And these games, as you said to me, Tyler, as these go on, we lose in a singles format and the games get easier. You go down and you start playing against people that are not as good as you or are as good as you, but you're in your skill bracket. When you're on a team and your team's not losing, but you're losing, you're not getting any easier games. You're getting harder games every time. And it's a real reality check on that.
Hell yeah, man. Really great mental performances by both y'all to bounce back from some pretty rough losses there. I know that we definitely bust you on this one. Ryan, some nice job coming back with a couple of points there.
I didn't bounce back much after this.
Mental, that's what matters. And then Ian, have you played this night's match much before, or I feel like we had an information asymmetry going into this that hit was pretty bad here.
Yeah, so I played this matchup a lot at the start of 10th edition. Admittedly, Knights was a very different flavor back then when Titanic was a really funny keyword. And back then I was also running a Terminator brick, which I think works wonders in this matchup. So I had this marked as a green on my matrix. If I were to go back, I think I could probably still score pretty decently. The hard part was the table choice. The table choice sucked for me. It was terrible. So I don't know. I think there was a lot of things I would do differently. But overall, I think I do understand what Knights are capable of doing, and I would just maybe slightly downgrade it from a green to maybe a purple, maybe a slightly losing purple, depending on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, other game where the table, this is the table we played on, right? Oh, no, it wasn't Crucible. Sorry, this was Search and Destroy. Whoops. Search and Destroy. This one, yeah. Super Elf and a light board. The double whammy of awful things for Magnus.
I just can't move Magnus anywhere, and any objective that I try and stand on, nope, I don't get to exist on that objective.
This was my board.
This was your board?
Yeah, that was my board.
Oh, were you on?
I played on this board.
No, you were on this board.
Oh, I had Super L as well. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you had big Super Ls. Ian had little Super Ls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Magnus doesn't like any Super Ls, but the little ones.
Couldn't hold any objective. Any objective that I stood on would immediately just get blasted. Like whatever I put there, like Knights are quite good into Mutalith Vortex Beasts, even through -1 to hit. Knights are pretty good into Magnus, especially when they can do 12 wounds in one shooting phase. With one knight, yeah.
One armiger.
One armiger, I think, did like 12 wounds. Yeah. Yeah. It's just. Yeah, this map was terrible. I misplayed this terribly. Yeah, this game sucked.
Yeah.
This game sucked.
So in terms of pairings, these are the kind of things that we want to identify as early on as possible in preparation, especially that, this is a table that's really bad for Magnus, and especially when he is up against the kind of shooting that can really put a hurting on him. And with that in mind, I believe we had first table pick here. We should have gotten this table out of the way immediately, right? Our first defender here was I don't have Quebec. I had every other team. I was too excited to take pictures here.
Was it Pina?
It was probably Pina. It should be.
No, it was me. It was me, and I picked the other one.
I think I was Scrum or something.
Gotcha.
No, wasn't it me? I picked because
we first defended with Ryan here, knowing that he would grab the T-Suns, and we put him on the wrong table. We should have put them on this table because A, it's worse for T-Suns, but also B, it saves our T-Suns in the process.
So interestingly, I also learned because we picked the other one with the big Super Ls, and I thought that was going to be better for me, but it actually was worse for me because I had so many vehicles that I was stuck behind everything. So his Magnus couldn't do anything, but all my vehicles were stuck in a corner and could never get out. And so it took me too long to do anything.
This table is deceptively horrible to get out of your deployment zone on Search and Destroy, because like that crate is right in your way. You can stage behind your one ruins, but unless you're infantry, you basically can't get to your expansion no matter what. It's a nightmare to move on if you're trying to hide.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. You just teleport your whole army there. Like, it's not that difficult. Just the Catan's
Shut the fuck up.
Top one, the Transcendence.
Just scout.
Yeah, that was definitely a theme of my learning over the weekend too. Was these WTC boards moving 3 land forts around was rough sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bummer, I think, when we realized that the FLG boards are not as tank friendly as we had hoped that they would be, and that was definitely a miscalculation in our comp. I think that a different comp would have made a lot more sense with those boards in mind. So I'm looking forward to adapting to that kind of thing in the future and focusing more on the boards that we don't really know what to do with. So end of round 4, we are 2-0-2. We are still undefeated. That's kind of the name of the game here. We're not losing rounds. Alex?
Shout out to Christian. This is my favorite game of the whole weekend. Whenever you have 2 people and you have this like contract to 40K where everyone is on the same level, I wanted to smoke a cigarette after the game. It was awesome. It was just such an enjoyable time.
So we said this was our favorite opponents, but they also gave us quite a fun little reward after the tournament.
Yeah. Do you have that with you, Lukas? Lukas is going to go get it from downstairs.
I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Like, it was just
awesome.
There's like three of us just sitting in the corner, and the Quebec team captain is like, "We have a prize for you guys," and we call over the boys. We're like, "What are you guys talking about?" and then they gave us something cool.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a while. Sorry, go for it, John.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, like, these guys finished up their games too, and then immediately packed up their armies to take it over to like the painting competition. Like, their armies were gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there was a best overall handed out, but they would certainly be a really strong contender for it. Gorgeous stuff, really, really well playing. I think they ended up placing just a little bit ahead of us.
Yeah, they finished 4th, I think.
Yeah, and incredible sportsmanship. These guys are everything that Team 40k can be. Massive shout out to them and their whole scene. But yeah, Ian is right. We did have quite an interesting set of rounds here where their captain came over because they had a non-playing captain, which was great. He comes over and he says in his silly little French accent, these guys are all adorable. I love them. He's like, "Oh, excuse me, Captain. In the spirit of transparency, I feel like I should tell you, Magnus died turn 1. I don't know. He died turn 1.
Yep.
Like, oh no.
It was seeing that rumor go around and everybody hearing that, like, oh dude, just echoing in my head.
I literally remember hearing in the pairings, the only a little bit of French I heard was the knight player saying, "If I kill Magnus, I win the game." And I was like, okay, take a note of that. And then instantly I'm like, okay, all right, 5-up feel no pain land.
Yeah, I turn over to Lukas and I see what's going on his table because him, Steve, and I are all playing in a row, kind of on the front end. I'm like, "Hey, Lukas, can you push for a 22, baby? Someone's got to bail us out here." Lukas is back here. You got the lovely medal they gave us.
Home, boys.
Yeah, the baguette.
Unfortunately, they didn't surrender. The baguette people did not surrender this round.
They did not. No, they fought very hard. We end up on the winning side of a draw here, 83-77. Phenomenal round. Absolutely top tier 40k happening top to bottom. Great eight pairings by them. Great playing by them. They out-knowledged us in terms of table and matchup here, which is what ends up getting them a draw in what otherwise could have been a pretty big loss to them. So nicely done on their part. That was all up here for them. Good stuff. Got some photos here. I will pull us back to this one to see it. Here we've got Lukas squaring up against this poor guard player who has no idea what's about to happen to him, apparently.
My boys have the best mounted keyword. Your fucking horsies don't got shit.
Hell yeah, man. Sweet. That brings us over to the end of day 2. We're 2-0-2. We're definitely not riding quite as high as we are at the end of day 1, being 2-0. But having played against some much higher caliber teams, no offense to our day 1 opponents, they were lovely. But it just gets sharkier as you keep climbing up. We are feeling very excited to be undefeated, moving into round 5, where we're going to pair into Mark Perry and the Hobby Goblins. Definitely another team with some pretty big asymmetry there. Mark Perry is a phenomenal player, former USA guy, absolute mountain of a man, both in person and on the tabletop. He's brought along a bunch of his locals as well, who put up some very excellent performances, but he is definitely kind of the thing that we have to pair around. He did this whole thing in his head, no matrix, no nothing, just this is what it did, and frankly, his pairings did not go too poorly, so props to him for that. Ryan, you want to give us the quick rundown on who everyone paired into this round?
Yeah, sure. So we've got Tyler's Necrons going into World Eaters, John's Votann going into Necrons, Alex's Sisters going into Drukhari, Ryan's Death Guard going into Imperial Knights, real interesting Imperial Knight list, Steve's World Eaters going into Sisters, Max's Guard into Orcs, that's Mark Perry, Ian's T-Sons going into Tau, and Lucas's Wolves going into the Custodes.
Very nice. So this here ends up being a real interesting match. In some of these matches, almost no one ends up off base. In this match, we had 4 different games that fell down after what felt like a really great pairing going in, and that evidence that there was a little bit of an information asymmetry here. Literally everyone's games here were awesome and are worth talking about. So if we're willing to be brief, I'm down to hear from everybody. Who wants to get started here? Because this round was great. Alex?
Yeah, linchpin we need to say that. Just the word linchpin. Okay. Going first, I felt like I misidentified. Should have not pressured. Should have just like made sure that we kept it close. I pressured thinking he didn't have that much stuff. I had a go turn, bounced off, got super punished. That's on me.
I want to interject on Alex's. Our matrix for his matchup specifically was completely fucked up because this guy had a very off Drukhari list where he had almost no Dark Lances. He had all Haywire, including Taluses with Haywire. So this man had like quadruple the amount of Haywire of a normal Drukhari list. So we sent Alex in expecting it to be a normal Drukhari list, and he's like, take 50 mortal wounds to your 6 tank dot army. And he got scanned for it. But
this was Raiders instead of Sky Splinter, right?
Yeah, no.
So
it was a very unique list. And I think after day 2, we were all kind of like, we're good. This is fine. We're having fun. And then, I was like, oh, after like round 2, I was like, oh no, like I should not have been in this room against this man. And so I was like, okay, we'll do what we can. And then I got 5 to 15. And I was like, okay, this will never happen again. I have to read every fucking list I ever see, front to back, cover to cover. It's just like hand on the stove.
Yeah. Absolutely. We made the mistake here. I also feel especially bad because we totally bullied you into this, right? This being in a first round of the day, we got to see our pairing the night before. We were at dinner. We were back in the hotel room talking about all these different matchups, and we move a lot of matrices around in these meetings, which is great. It results in some things like us being comfortable putting Max into those ACDC spam CSM that he was able to bully so hard, which was awesome. But it also resulted in us saying, no, Alex, you should be totally fine into Drukhari. You have so many holes and so many flamers, like go get them. And that we were the entire team was off base. That is like Alex's L on paper, but that is a team L. And particularly as acting as captain, like that is on me. That I should not be letting that happen in the first place. So props to Alex for holding together what you can.
Eternally grateful that we won because I immediately walk away and I'm like, okay, then on to the next one.
We can talk about my game.
Yeah, go
because
Steve.
I have the other funny game. So before we get into my game, my matrix for this team was top meme. It was like 4 blues, 3 greens, and like a purple or something. I had 1 teal, which was the Drukhari.
Give me a sec to pull it up here, Steve.
Oh yeah, my matrix is big funny here. And I was, to be honest, being very conservative with that matrix. There it is. So when, as I stated earlier, a black for me isn't a black. It's just it's like a green or a purple. Unless I get table, then it's a 20-0, which the sisters are black. And as my score shows, this game was really good because this guy was he's a great guy. He was self-admittedly a hobbyist and like more of a casual. This is the hobby goblins. They all painted very well. But we had a great game. He got tabled in like 2 turns. Like before his second turn ended, he was 99% dead. That's just a skill difference. But what he did, which I appreciated, a lot of people don't do, especially like stubborn casuals, he took every advice I gave him. Throughout the game, he was like asking, "Is this correct?" And obviously, I'm not trying to like throw the game, but I'm like, "Yeah, dude, this is correct. This is what you should be doing." And it's like, that's what people should be doing if they're playing someone who's vastly higher skill level to him. And he took everything to heart. He thanked me, and we had a great game. And he came out as a better player because I explained to him all the misplays and what I'm going to do to capitalize onto them. But yeah, that was a great game. And let me say I stomped.
Hell yeah, man. Good stuff. As you can see by our sisters column there, that was the absolute best possible case scenario, was getting Steve into sisters on Steve's table choice. Almost no one had a particularly winning matchup there in what is frankly a fairly disrespectful matrix. Everyone was feeling real good into this. Who else would like to talk about their game a little bit?
I'll go. Yeah, Mark Perry's he's good at Warhammer. Did you guys know? It turns out good at Warhammer. God, it was a very good game. I got a little greedy early, sent out a Chimera with some catechins over to his natural expansion. Which was that was a silly mistake, which I think was what cost me the couple of points, which could have made it the 8-12, which I projected. But it was a great game. I was like realizing though that I was like, oh man, this might be a 5-15, and I was kind of getting sad mid game. And Mark was like, hey man, let's just pause. It's just a game. We're having a great time. And I was like, you're right, man. He was just a great opponent, great dude, just wonderful, wonderful time.
Hell yeah, man. Glad to hear it. Yeah, Mark, absolute paragon of every aspect of the community. He, I don't think we ended up with the picture in here of his display board, but he had, what did he have, like an alligator skull on that thing?
Yes, from his fucking farm or whatever. Absolute lunatic human being. I love Mark.
What a king among men.
Speaking of Mark is the reason I am in competitive Warhammer and I'm as good as I am. Because Mark, for some reason, lived in goddamn Mississippi in freaking 2019. And I met him there at a random tournament in West Mississippi. And he like took me in. He's like, I'm going to add you to this group champ of my friends. And that is why I became really good at Warhammer. And I thank you, Mark. You're a good man.
I'd not heard that story. That's awesome, Steve.
Yeah, I played Mark
Good
a lot in like 2019, 2020.
Sweet. Awesome.
I could talk about my game because I
Totally.
think this is the game that mentally broke me in the tournament. I actually pulled Tyler aside because I was like, I'm going to quit Warhammer. I'm just going to quit Warhammer. I don't know how to play Warhammer anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. Like what is wrong with me? Yeah, like I this is a green. He had, so this is night list.
Let's start with the
amazing.
list.
Yeah, it was 3 nights, three 24 wound knight chassis, which is the Lancer, it was the Preceptor, and it was
It's Canis Rex. It's not a Preceptor.
Canis Rex. Oh, okay. Knight Lancer, Canis Rex, and what is the other one called? Atropos, right? And the big boy, was it the Porphyrion? Was the fourth night. And every one of us looked at this and were like, it's 4 nights. We can kill 4 nights. This is fine. He goes first. Again, I went second everything. And as Death Guard, I prefer going first because I just want to get my slow ass bodies onto the board and be staged. And he moves his Lancer all the way up, doesn't kill anything that they want to. And so I pile everything out and I'm like, all right, I'm going to kill this Lancer this turn. And I miss a 5-inch charge with 12 Plague Marines and forget that I have a CP to reroll it because I'm just like so frustrated with myself and messed up at this point. And so then because of that, I get jailed into my deployment zone. The next turn, I kill all 3 of the 24 wound knight chassis. And he looks at me like, that's never happened to me before. And I'm like, yeah, this is what Death Guard does when you get within 12 inches of them. But at that point I was so far back in my deployment zone and I couldn't get out and I just couldn't do anything. And like, I scraped it into a tie, but it should have been a green. The Porphyrion just walked around the board killing things all the rest of the game. I could never kill it because it saw something and saw 2 things and they both died basically. So, but this was where I think the tournament tiredness. Yeah. I know that wasn't to me, but still. This is where the tournament tiredness really took hold and hit me in this. And I was like, oh man, this is a problem. So, but his night list was beautiful. His Porphyrion was beautiful. And he put little plates on the feet so it wouldn't fall off the table like other Porphyrions I've seen in the past.
Not the queen.
This game was a lot of fun for me as well. I had to play against Tao. I don't know any of my opponents' names. I'm sorry if they're in the chat. My bad. But yeah, I had to play against a super wonderful guy. If anything, he was one of, if not my favorite opponent of the weekend. And this game was a bit of a redemption for me, I think, because top 5, I think I had an angle to win, but everybody else's games were done at this point. And Tyler would come to my table and Tyler was like, okay, we just need you to get like a 7. We just need you to, or like an 8. We need you to get an 8. And I have an angle that I could have gone for like a 12-point win. And I think it was like a pretty decent angle if I could have gone for a 12-point win. But I'm like, all right, fine. I'm playing for the team. I don't need to win. Like for me, it was like an ego thing. Like I want to win. I want to come back with something that's like more than what I said I would. But it's like, no, I'm playing at a team's event. I'm going to come back and I'm going to take the points where I can get the points. hunkered down on my home field. It didn't do anything in the game. I'll go figure. He took my home field. But the point stands is that I played for the team and I got the points that I said I was going to get for the team, and that felt pretty good for me. So
Hell yeah.
Because
man. That's good stuff.
imagine you go for that risk and it doesn't pan out, and all of a sudden we end up with another fucking 85-point tie.
yeah,
Good job.
my mental was already absolute Astro doomed at that point. So it can't get any lower, right?
Yeah.
So John, you said your game was goofy in this round.
Yeah, it was going into the Hypercrypt Necron. You had the Tesseract Vault, which if anyone hasn't seen it, it's like a massive footprint, and it's Titanic. So if it touched into anything, it could blast away. The shooting didn't end up being as scary as I thought it was going to be, and I think I could have played a little bit more aggressively early. But I mean, big shout out to Devin. He played a great game. He was a magnificent opponent. Had a great time. He had a great laugh. Like, he just was so joyful playing the game. It was a real treat. But yeah, at the end, there was another learning thing too. I didn't realize how far the vault could move, and it just needed to get a little bit over the middle objective to take it. And so I ended up dedicating too many resources to take out another thing that I thought would prevent that. And then it left my backfield open. And my list, unfortunately, had no battle line. So I was very susceptible to that secret mission, or whatever they're called now. That came up a couple times. So enlist design, I learned that.
Yeah, that was definitely a big takeaway for the team in total. I've gotten in the habit when I'm filling lists out into the matrix of notating where is my opponent, who's the opponent's warlord, who are all of their battle line in different color codes. And we cannot bring lists that don't have battle line. That is not a thing that works. We told you not to bring battle line. We pushed you in this very chonk heavy direction. Your original list that is on me and the comp that we designed into here. But to anyone out there who is looking to design a team's list, make sure that you have battle line in everyone's list at least a little bit, so that if you know you're going into Necrons or Grey Knights, you can plan around protecting that unit, as opposed to just immediately forking over 20 points just for your opponent showing up. But yeah, good stuff there. I got to play this round into Brian, who was a great deal of fun. We had an awesome round, and this was probably, I wish I had my scorecard up here. This is probably one of the wackiest linchpin games that I have ever played. At the end of battle round 3, the primary is 31-6 in his favor. He has an 18 and a 13, and I have 2 3s. And the secondary is not much better. I had to take an entire turn off of established locus just to deal with all the nonsense he threw, because he spread super wide. We had a great moment where before the game, I'm like, I do it against World Leaders every time. I parked all of my Catan on the line in a bubble. I said, what are you going to do about it? You're going to run forward screaming? Because that's what the guy did round 1, and it really burned him. He's like, nah, man, I'm not going to do that. I'm not the kind of World Leaders player. I'm not going to run forward screaming. And then, he goes first, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, hey, Mark, Captain, should I run forward screaming? And Mark's like, yeah, man, run forward screaming. So he ran forward screaming. And it happened just like they all do. But he managed to pressure all of the flanks at once instead of just trying to kill my Catan, which meant that he killed me a little bit less efficiently than he would like to. My Nightbringer did not die this game. If the Nightbringer does not die, the World Leaders lose. That just happens. It's very consistent. But he was able to put out a lot of pressure in a lot of places at once. I also completely forgot about sticky objectives this game, which was very annoying. He didn't mark them in any way. I should have known this. I played World Leaders enough. He knows that I played World Leaders enough. He shouldn't need to mark them or tell me. That's just a thing that happens, obviously. But I'm like, all right, great. I'm going to shoot your jackals off of every objective, and you're about to lose all your primary. He's like, dude, sticky? And also they have the sticky when you kill stuff as well. So does that work in shooting as well, Steve, or is that melee only?
It works in shooting. Don't worry about that one.
Works in shooting as well. Absolutely. This was a terrible game plan. I still think it was the right call, and I killed all of his battle line because, spoiler alert, I secret mission, and I got my War of Attrition. But I will say it was very funny. At the end of battle round 3, I'm looking over at everyone else, and actually this, Lukas, was this one of the rounds where you were done way before everyone else? Yeah, Lukas is way done. Lukas has taken over my job as coach and captain here, because my game is going long and there's a lot to do, and Lukas will talk about his game in a second. It was over very quickly. But I secret missioned as the safe play because I knew that the round was going very well in general. and I got my full 40 primary out of it. If I don't secret mission, I hold all 5 objectives turn 5 and get a 23 instead of a 20 that battle round, and I end up with that would have been what, 23, 31, 41, 47. So I could have gotten another diff point out of this. Actually, there would have been 2 more diff points. It could have been a 16, but I figured let's play it safe, let's be simple, and just get the automatic 40 and go from there. Like I said, his primary was 31 at the end of round 3. He got a 3 on turn 4, and he got 0 primary turn 5. So the primary ends up being 34 to 40. And his secondary really falls apart when I table him on turn 3 because Night goes chop. The Locust Heavies are absolutely disgusting in the World Leaders, not only because they obliterate Jackals, but also because they obliterate everything else. And they also, even if they don't do the Ingress Overwatch, they generally kill an 8-bound or an Exalted on Overwatch if you can avoid giving them cover. And I was able to pull that off here to some great effect because 2 8-bound do not kill the squad, and then we fall back. Like, it's all just disgusting. This was a really fun game. Brian was a really great opponent, but I was really glad that we were able to pull off a decent-sized victory here to get the team over the hump. 88 is a little close for comfort given how the pairings shook out, but this was a good dub for the Crons. Speaking of good dubs, though, Lucas, what happened into Cuthberts?
Yeah, this was a matchup that I rated as green. I'll keep this very brief because it was not the most interesting game, although my opponent was a great guy. Basically, he committed very piecemeal, and because my army is so much... let me go over his army. It's 3 Achilles Dreadnoughts, 3 of the Resurrecting Contemptor Dreadnoughts, and 3 Telemons, and then a unit of Guard. So, like, he's playing a bunch of 6 and 8 inch move Dreadnoughts, and I have way more mobility than him, so I just kind of like picked him apart. And there was a lucky end game swing that netted me 2 more differential, which I'm grateful for. It was just some basically huge luck at the very end with my Vindicator shooting, but this was a classic game of like speed wins games of Warhammer because I was able to take every engagement on my terms.
Nice. So big win there into the Goblins puts us at 3 wins, no losses, undefeated, and 2 draws going into the final round. And we have managed to dodge both Stat Check and Purple Cobras up to this point. So we're submarining a little bit, in all honesty. But the boys are putting in work, and we are coming out stronger every round. That brings us to our final round. Here's a picture of our pairings into the Goblins. You can see our sweet custom pairing cards there. I should have pulled up a slide that just had them on it because it looked awesome. We first defended here with Max, which was a fun thing to do. Do we hear about your game, Max? What did you play into? Into the Orcs? Oh yeah, Mark Perry, of course. We were really glad that they offered Mark early on. We knew that it wasn't necessarily our best matchup into Mark, but getting him out of the way and not needing to consider him in every other pairing made this a lot less complicated. So big shout out to Max for
I think they defended with Orcs, didn't they?
Did they first defend?
Yeah, we attacked.
I'm like 90%.
Oh, you're
sure.
right. You're totally right because we first
defended
defended with you
Space
here, which was crazy. That's a nonsense play, but it made sense given this matrix here. This was one where the more traditional just throw out the guy with 1 bad matchup makes a lot of sense. Because we considered Max, but we decided on you here because Max would have been a way for the Custards to escape, and we want to make sure that we punish them. So they attacked with the Custards anyway, but we got that into the Wolves there. So they first had Mark Perry. I think that was a big mistake on their part because Mark is so much value in the scrum. You generally want to hold your players to later. Though evidently we did the same thing, right? We first defended Lukas, they first defended Mark. We said, let's get our big boys out of the way early. So definitely an interesting set of pairings that one was. Sweet. And that brings us into our final round of the weekend, into the Denver Mountain Trolls, it's y'all trolling because it's a combination of the Denver Mountain Trolls and was the Texas team with the y'all in it?
Y'all hammer.
Something, I don't remember. They were also some very fun people here. This is Matt. I think of this as Matt Evans' team, even though he's not captain, just because he's a very good friend of mine. Or maybe he was captain, who was doing the pairings. It's not important. This team has Matt Evans. It has the Pope brothers on it. Very serious. There's a couple of Warhammer players, and they performed super well.
I think the older folk
Um,
brother was the captain, if I remember correctly.
That seems entirely plausible. I don't remember which one of them is older between Sam and Noah, but they're both
played
great
Sam.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Tyranids.
John, and you want to give us the rundown here for our whoops, don't remove that, for our last round of pairings.
Yeah, Tyler went into the World Eaters. I took on Sam Pope's Tyranids. Alex went into Sisters into T-Sons. Death Guard into Ultras.
Vanguard Ultramarines.
Vanguard, sorry about that. World Eaters into Demons. Guard into Guard. I got the mirror there. Ian's T-Sons into Necron. And Lukas rolling over the AdMech.
Hell yeah, man. Now, this was another one where I think it's really worth looking at the pairings because this was by far our worst matrix of the weekend. We were so damn scared of these guys. Let me pull this up here. Here we go. Yeah, that's bad. That's real bad. We have basically two prey out there, the demons and the world eaters, that we feel confident we have some ability to hunt, and maybe a little bit into the nids if we're lucky. But overall, there's just a lot to be afraid of here. That Ultramarines Vanguard list, again, we brought a very whole spam comp. Ultramarines Vanguard have the Centurions. They have the Centurions and the Eradicators.
No Eradicators. Two
no
squads
Eradicators.
of Inceptors.
They have the 2 squads of Plasma Inceptors and the 2 Gladiator Lancers. That's what it is.
Yeah,
in addition
the
to the
Lancers.
Devastator Centurions that are giving us such fits. Everyone's terrified of that. This Crypt Crons list was super cool because he has 6 Gauss Destructor Locust Heavies that he can slam Lords into, and the Silent King and 2 DDAs. So just a whole bunch of anti-tank that we're worried about. And again, we're making this matrix very well. No, we had this like half build out, I think. Beforehand, the AdMech, very scary. This is Matt Evans running his absolute horde of chickens. You can check out the game that I played against that at Charity Hammer. I talk about it in our show from last week, and then also you can watch the VOD on War Games Live. He's been doing pretty darn well with that. T-Sons are obviously scary because they're T-Sons, and then the Garden or the Nids are vaguely neutral. So very scared here. Do we have? Yeah, you can discern the first defender pairings from this if you look really closely. I can't see it though. It looks like we started off. I can't see it all. I don't remember where we started off with this.
This is in our matrix, isn't it?
Is it in? Sorry.
On the right in the little box.
Oh, did we? No, we
did not. I'm sorry.
We stopped tracking these at a
Was it
a certain
Ryan?
point. It should be. This is why we wanted to do it. I think it might have been Ryan here. Yeah,
It might
Ryan or
be right.
Steve?
and Ron.
Let's see.
It was definitely not Steve. So yeah, it was probably Oh yeah, it was Ryan, and then Ryan took the Marines off the table. Absolutely, this was a really big grenade jump for us. We were really hoping that they would offer us the Ultramarines because it absolutely is a matchup that they should want. Ryan felt fairly confident that he would keep it close to a draw. Nobody else wanted anything to do with it other than Lukas, and they're not going to give it to Lukas. So that was fantastic for us. We were very excited to get that column out of the way early on. And then the Necrons came out fairly early as well, if memory serves, to get them into Ian, which was like full disclosure, a very nerve-wracking thing to offer you to say, hey, here, Ian, I know you haven't been having the best event ever. Go play into the Silent King with Magnus. Very sketchy situation. So mad props to you for pulling that off there. I think I might actually just have the photo of the full pairings on my phone here. Yeah, I totally do. There we go. Yeah, we first defended and did share. Yeah. And they first defended guard, and they took that guard mirror up immediately. How was that guard mirror, Max? I know that didn't end up kicking out.
I wanted to go first. But honestly, it was really scary. 3 Dorns to 2 Dorns is really scary because I just knew in my head, well, he's probably going to end up with, a Dorn. He starts with the Dorn advantage and probably ends up with the Dorn advantage. But I started with the Bulgren advantage and hope to keep that. I mispositioned my Dorns early and got one shot by all 3 of his Dorns. That was not good. Though it did only just die to a stubber. Like that, it was like the last thing that shot it, and it was the last save, and it was alive on 1 wound, and the stubber killed it. To be fair, this was an ignore cover AP2 stubber. By the way, I am very sold on the nipple stubbers over the nipple meltas now. By the way, thank you, Noah. You are that. Yeah. You're right, Noah. You're right. It's sick. So it was a great game. Great game. Super tight. I went for a little riskier of a play, and the 6th game of the tournament, pretty tired already. Did not fully think it out, and I was like, I should have just gone for that 5 points on primary, because 5 points in teams is a whole point. That's an 8-12. Again, the thing I'd projected. So, my last day was just slipping 1 point below my projected, which was pretty disappointing, to be very honest. I was sad. But Noah was an awesome opponent, super friendly. I got a really cool sticker from Y'all Hammer that I now have on my FLG board, or carrying tray. So it was really cool. And he gave me a dice, which was really nice. So very awesome game, super great opponent, and a damn good guard player.
Hell yeah, man. Who else wants to talk about some of their experiences into the trolls? Alex, yeah, for sure.
So this was my second. This was my second T-Suns player, and I was really happy to play T-Suns because I've played a lot of T-Suns. So it was basically T-Suns are like, I was like, you can't do that. You have to do this. The very T-Suns thing. My opponent deployed in a very goofy way that I definitely was like, what are you doing? It was FLG. We both got the scrum. He put his whole army on like one of the corners of the battlefield because he was like, I've never played Sisters. Sisters are shooting world leaders. I don't play them like that, but they certainly are. So he was like, this is what I'm going to do. And he put his whole army, boom. And I was so tempted to just start burning, like turn 2, like his home objective. But it's T-Suns, you can double move everything. It ended up being the right call because I couldn't really interact, and then Magnus got the first drop on something. But as I was saying that, I was like, what is this guy doing? But it was a great opponent, great time. Obviously, it worked out. But.
Very nice. Lukas, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about your game into Mr. Evans here.
Yes. I went first. I killed his screen. He remade screen. I ended his entire career. No, but yeah, so like the problem is like his attachment rule being stealth and cover doesn't do anything because I don't really shoot that hard. And when I do, I have both the moment. And when he activates 5 at Feel No Pain, that saves like 1.5 chickens from the one squad that gets it, and then every other chicken that gets tagged instantly melts. So like he would pick like one little corner of the board to be like, I'm going to stay alive slightly longer than I'm supposed to here with 5 at Feel No Pain, and then everywhere else he just giga melted. And like I kept having these experiences where like I had the same kind of basic gameplay in the Custodes where we have the same kind of things. We have like big dumb dudes that kind of lumber around buildings, but mine are so much faster that I can always get the first drop. So he would have to come forward to try to block me from getting onto the objectives immediately, and I would just pounce and just demolish him. And there was really nowhere he could hide unless he wanted to completely not play the game with me. And maybe that's what he should have done. Maybe he should have sat on his home objective and gotten a 4 points instead of a 0. I don't blame him for trying to play the game, though. So, I don't know. It's wild, man. This army's so fast.
Hell yeah, dude. And I know that he accepted that, right? He second defended for them and picked you over. Do you remember who else we sent?
No, I don't remember who else we sent.
Green and gold was off the table, so it was me, Sebert, T-Suns, or Sisters.
They might have had some miscommunication on their team because Evans was saying everyone was shitting their pants over me, and then 3 different people on their team came up to me afterward and were like, "What'd you put my matchup? Did you have it as green? I think I'm gonna shit on you." And I'm like, "All right, well, I'm glad we didn't play then, buddy. Jesus Christ." It was the most alien experience ever because like I said, Evans thought everyone was shitting their pants at me. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough, man. But yeah, great work there. You definitely carried it pretty hard this round. Tell me if you've heard of this one before, but I played against a World Leaders player named Brian, not to be confused with my opponent from last round, the World Leaders player named Brian. And this Brian was a super cool dude. They just spelled their name differently for what it's worth. This was Brian with an I, not Brian with a Y. This man did not run forward screaming. He was an older guy, and he was playing real smart, real clever, real passive. Angron sat on his home field for 3 battle rounds. I was like, "You gonna bring him out? You gonna bring him out?" He's like, "Nope, I sure don't need to. I know what happens when that happens. He dies and he doesn't come back." Damn it. You're right. And what that meant was that I could never really do what I wanted to do, which is that this was so beautiful. I got to play this on this was on Crucible, right? So I was playing on the Crucible. I love this table. There it is.
Did you play World Leaders
Crucible.
3 times?
I played World Leaders 3 times this weekend,
yeah.
and I won all 3 of the games. This was the closest of the 3. So props to Brian.
Thing ever.
But yeah, props to Brian for keeping this one close.
Wait, hold on. Hold the phone. Hold the fucking phone. The World Leaders game you played that was closest was the one where they didn't just run towards you like an ape.
Crazy. Who would have thunk it?
World Leader players, mind fucking blown, dude.
Yeah, this being Scorched Earth was a bit of a bummer because this table was interesting. I was very happy to play on this because it means that he can't really fight me with a lot of things at once, right? I put all 4 Catan on the line and marched them directly from my deployment zone to his home field objective, which is a great thing to do. But like, you put 2 Transcendents, they clog up this hole here with the crates, and suddenly like he can only fight with 2 or 3, with 1 or 2 things at a time. Which gave him a lot of struggle. And then Xeris was bouncing around the corner objectives, knocking him off of things. There's this beautiful moment where I zone absolutely everywhere other than a direct line on my home field to zone all of his ingresses. And he's like, "Did you miss this one?" And I'm like, "Nope, go for it." And that is how we threw away a squad of 3 Exalted 8-bound in exchange for 5 death marks and no swing in primary. That was a great maneuver. Even though the problem with this arm, part of the problem is that I did throw away my trash units a little bit too quickly. Obviously, it worked out. I won the game 13-7. It could have been a lot worse, but I was definitely reaching to get something. Like I turned 5. I went first, and top 5. I got behind enemy lines and established Lukas with the Nightbringer. I picked him up, walked him in by a strat reserve, and said, "Lukas, over to you," because there was literally no other unit in my army available to do that. That wouldn't have lost me primary in the process. So I get my full 50 primary here. Yeah, I never got to his home field. It was tragic because Angron just sat there the whole time, and he kept doing what he could to keep me off of it, and he was playing to the quarters. I did also have the wonderful discovery that spawn into Immortals with a Chronomancer are literally useless. It turns out -1 to hit and 3 up armor save just completely turns off spawn. He had 4 spawn fighting those 5 Immortals, and they just held the objective the whole game. Nothing he could do, which was great. But yeah, really well played by Brian here. Really good objective play and being conservative in the right places and whatnot. We had a really, really great time, and he also gave me a lot of sparkling water, which is a really quick way to my heart. So shout out to him for that. Anyone else want to chat about the games here? I know I want to hear from Ian because I feel like he is the people's champion this round, going into his orange and coming back with an 8. That is the thing that keeps us afloat here.
Yeah, that matchup was abysmal. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's the king. He had, I think, either 6 or 9 Locust Heavy Destroyers with the big 6 damage gun.
6 with the 6 damage gun, 3 with the little gun.
Yeah, and then he had 2 DDAs. So like pretty much anything I ever expose will immediately just get eviscerated. Yeah, so that game was just an absolute scrap on my end. I didn't come into it wanting to win. Anything that I sent out was like, all right, you're doing a secondary mission, you're dying for that. You're gonna kill this thing on this objective, you're gonna die for that. That was the game, and I was just kind of like hoping that my bluff wouldn't be called, and they wouldn't just drop everything in my DZ and like stat check me, because if they did that, they would have absolutely tabled me. But they didn't. I just stood on my home field and, hunkered down here, held my 1 objective. It's Scorched Earth, right? So I just had to hold 1 objective. So I held 1 objective for the entire game. They never called my bluff on it. I scored decent. That was the game. It was the most, honestly, it was like the most stressful and the most hard fought 8 points that should had 0 right to be an 8-point game in my entire life. So great opponent. Really funny game from my perspective.
That's blunting, baby. Nicely done.
Hell yeah. Great work, everyone. So this is the only round that we do end up on the downside of the draw from when we go 77 to 83. So props to them for actually putting it to us. But that does mean, as the title would suggest, that at the end of the event, we are 3-0-3. We are undefeated, baby, with an indeterminate number of Fs in our name. Massive props to everyone for making this happen here. Here's that photo of us pairing. I think that's is that Noah Pope there? And then that brings us to the end of the event. We finish off in 7th place because a bunch of other teams ended up in similar kind of records. But 7th out of what do we say? This was 56. Phenomenal finish. Considering who was out and about there. Some fantastic teams were in attendance, including the main show stat checks team of Avengers, who naturally just stomped everyone they played against. So big shout out to all of our opponents. We had a wonderful time here. I'd love to hear from y'all though. What were some reflections, some closing thoughts on this great event here? Yeah, go for it.
As a professional hold the liner, Pariah Nexus, if you're on the draw, you get 12. If you're on the play, you get 8. And as we saw, like, you can do some stuff about it, but you can't really do much about it. And it matters because several of our draws were like within 2 or 3 points. And so it's just like, we've had the mission pack for 4 months. I'm excited for the next one. I don't have any like negativity about it, but it's just like secret missions are just like, I don't know, they're whatever. And in a team's environment, especially, it's like a little bit less exciting when everyone holds the line and it becomes this meta of like who can go like absolutely eat lunch and who can't,
To add to that, like I got jailed in I think 4 out of 6 matchups, like fully jailed, and like the other 2 couldn't, like other things went wrong, but I'm just like tired of that in the meta as well. The 3-inch deep strike and being jailed by things is just I'm changing armies because of that. I'm so tired of that happening to me. And the Pariah Nexus really lends to that style of play right now. And it's just kind of boring. Maybe not for Necrons.
No, I totally feel it. I feel like Pariah without secret missions is already one of the most go second favored packets that we've ever seen. A lot of these missions just really like going second, and the meta right now very much likes being in a beta strike. So the addition of those just absolutely backbreaks every game in that favor in the first place, and I think that definitely shows up in a lot of our results where we have a lot of purples that flipped on going first and not much else.
I will say that after this tournament, I feel like I'm pretty sold on Team 40K. Like it's almost depressing to have to be like, all right, I guess I have to go back to the singles format now. Like it just seems so boring to me. The teams was like really entertaining because it felt like there's a sense of camaraderie and there's like a greater purpose within each game that it felt good to contribute towards that purpose. So looking forward to more teams.
I agree, dude. I just I dropped a singles tournament to go play MCP because I was like, damn, it's not teams. I don't think I'm gonna enjoy it as much. It's not gonna be as fun.
It's fun in teams to see like the storylines of your teammates, and like after an event, there's already so much to think about from like your own perspective, but then also to look back and reflect on everyone else's kind of like 6-game journey was really cool. Like I loved seeing the little mini storyline of you like rallying on day 3, Max. I thought that was really cool, being like put into shitty positions, not by like Mark Perry as a player, but like he put you in jail and exploited a little hole in your defenses, and you came back and rallied while super tired and got a 7. That was super sick. And then you did it again in the guard mirror. Like seeing that back to back was super cool. And like if either of those games you hadn't rallied, like we probably would have gotten a tie instead of a win, or a loss instead of a draw. So like that was super cool. And then seeing Ian rally back after his like Magnus fuck up on day 2, and then like deliver back to back on day 3 was also super cool. So like coming back, and everyone had a storyline like that that's what's so cool about teams, is you can like kind of live vicariously through all your teammates, and it's really fun. From my own perspective, just like playing a hunting list, like in teams, I'm used to like playing orcs, which are like a big blunter because they're just hard to really put fully in the locker. So I'm very comfortable now with playing in the blunting role, and it feels very comfortable and safe. But like Steve was mentioning at the beginning, being a hunter is like high pressure. Like you're required to deliver, otherwise the team doesn't win. And learning that I actually can deliver those results was a big confidence booster for me. So that felt really good.
Speaking of slightly off topic though, the coolest thing ever happened last week. Motherfucker, Liam VSL wins this team event, and then he goes 13-0 in England, playing a garbage pile of trash CSM. Hypothetically, that's what it looked like. The list was actually amazing, but that's the coolest shit ever. That makes me hype, motherfucker. Oh my god, that shit's so cool. That's it. That's what I want to say.
Veterans
man,
is
big-
the sickest CSM detachment. Like
It's really cool.
Oath is cool.
It's so
All right.
cool.
Oath is cringe, but that detachment has some cool strats. I'll agree. Big shout out to Liam for being the number one top performer. Big shout out to Lukas. I think you were in 6th overall. Let's go, dude. Hell of a show this weekend.
I want to shout out Nick Fromm, regional homie who got second.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
dude,
absolutely.
he fucking killed it.
Love
I
that guy.
beat his ass for weeks, and it worked out for him. Good job, Nikki.
Hell yeah, man. Good job. Sweet. Alrighty. Well, I think it's fair to say that every single one of us is real excited about Team 40K moving forward. This is the best way to be playing Warhammer, and I am super excited for the next big event for us. I think you will definitely be seeing some sort of ruffian showing at Champs Cup next year if we can by any means make it happen. Oh man, I'm exhausted. Sorry, I'm on 3 hours sleep, and the sun is coming up now. Anyway, let's hit some listener questions and then wrap this up for the week here. I definitely copied these in advance because I was paying attention. A couple of questions coming in here from our boy Sam Lemon, who I believe is still out in Oceania somewhere. He asks, I'm sorry, I'm going to cover something off for a sec. What were your expectations heading into the event for yourselves and for the team? What lessons learned did you all come away with from the event? Where do you think FLG did well in the event and not so well? I think we've covered a good amount of these things in the front end. I think that we ended up probably on the higher side of what we were hoping to make happen here. I don't think we had any crazy delusions of knocking stat check out of this or anything like that. But going through without a single lost round is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts on that or personal expectations that you didn't feel like you had a chance to mention earlier.
I think we got real hype when we looked at round 6 and we knew we had a shot at making top 3. Didn't work out, but that there was a moment there where we actually are in this, and that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I'll say, as Rose City Ruffians' first outing, awesome. We're on the map. We have a place to go from here, and I'm glad to see that it's so high up. So we can only, I want to hope that we can continue to succeed and keep that trajectory.
Definitely. And any lessons that we haven't you haven't had a chance to cover somewhere else in the show yet? I know I've talked a lot about the value of table and the value of certain kinds of practice, but did anyone else pick anything up that they wanted to share?
Well, me specifically.
Go for it, Steve.
Is that there is a big. I was gonna play also an off-meta list with the Custodians, but the value of an off-meta list in teams is very good because I was always underestimated and such, and it let me just beat the shit out of my first 5 opponents just because they didn't understand. They're like a Terminator, those things suck. World Eaters, they don't shoot guns. So that's really cool for teams. You can play funny, interesting lists.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely saw this in Belgium. I mean, France brought lists that people simply were not ready for, like the 101 Dalmatians, like Didn't they have, what was the second thing they had that was super crazy? I'm not going to go look at
Death
Prince's
Guard.
list right
Death
now.
Guard.
Death Guard, yeah. That people just were not ready for. And in a very flat meta where everything is good, being the good thing that no one knows how to deal with is definitely a good way to differentiate yourself there. Yeah, good shout on that, Steve. Cool. Next question coming in again from Sam says, Lukas, I know you borrowed the wolves from PNW hero Colby. Big shout out to the Kebster. And the army is full of alternate models, which were there to act as proxies or resemble GW miniatures. Question for the cast: what do you all think about using 3D printed proxy armies? And is there a line which you will draw where it is too far? Lucas, the question directed at you, so let's have you start off.
Personally, I don't really give a fuck. I like the look of GW models, so I always buy them unless I'm borrowing from someone else. But if people really like their prints, I don't really care. That's just my personal opinion.
I think that's like the general sentiment across the Pacific Northwest as a whole. And as long as your models fit the correct dimensions, you don't have something crazy going on, who the hell cares?
If you're not a 3-inch tall mutilate vortex beast, yeah, accessibility is big.
That. You know, it grows our community. I love it. It lets more people come up to like playing competitive armies more. It just makes it's just better, I think, for everyone in general. You get more practice, you become better players, more people get to enjoy this hobby. It's just overall a very good thing.
Like, think about George from our local scene, right? Like, the guy owns some amount of GW product, but he's like an avid competitor now because he can print tons of armies. Like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and his stuff looks nice. Like most people still try to paint their stuff nice and try to model it nice. It's not like just blobs of blank plastic, that resin or whatever on the board table.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as your stuff is very clear what it is and you're putting some amount of hobby effort into it, like I think we're past the point right now where people are being real sticklers about that, at least in the Northwest. I will say there are a lot of like logistical downsides to playing prints that I feel like people are starting to recognize and realize. They are incredibly brittle currently.
Yep.
Like, no matter what kind of resin you're using, it will not be able to have the combination of detail and also durability that injection molded older plastics do. That's a massive pain in the tail. They are not as fun to paint. They are not as pleasant to hobby and work with. If these are things that don't matter to you at all, and you're literally, you have another one, Alex?
Counterpoint, you don't have to fucking build them in the same way, which is nice if you have shaky hands or anything like that.
I mean, some of them, sure. I don't know if you've seen the way that those Wraith prints showed up to Nick's house. He never stopped complaining about those. But yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of different ways to interface with this hobby, and I think this is just another one of them. If this is for you, that's awesome. If it's not for you, stay out of other people's business at this point. We're all coming from different backgrounds and just trying to have a good time here. Tim asked a couple of good logistical questions for running team events. His first question is, what is the shortest amount of time that you think rounds should be for 8 or 5-man teams, including pairings? 4 hours. 4 hours. This is, we didn't mention this earlier, but this is, dang it, I didn't put this in my survey either. If you're listening, FLG, 2 hours and 22 minutes into my stupid show for some reason. Thank you. Lunch has to be long. At a team event, lunch has to be long, 2 hours. It's gotta be. If you're going to not only be able to eat, especially if your food options on site are limited, we need the ability to go get food and also build a matrix, and you can't do both those things. You just can't. So 4-hour rounds, 2-hour lunch, that's a 10-hour day. That's exactly the same as 3-hour rounds and a 1-hour lunch. So you're like, we're used to that kind of a time frame. Rekerfuffle some things around, make it happen. That's what it's got to be if you're going to do teams like this.
And also, especially if you're going to stick to the 1-hour time frame, which you shouldn't, but keep people beholden to the schedule. There was multiple times where certain teams would play past the morning round, and that pushes back the amount of time that you have to prepare for your round 2 in that day, because you now have 15 or 20 minutes to build your matrix during lunch instead of 30. Those 10 minutes are huge, and I don't give a fuck that StatCheck is still playing their morning round. Cut them off. Like, everyone is beholden to the same time. It's really fucking annoying, the double standards of, oh, this person is a name in the community, I can't cut off their game. I don't care. Cut them off. The round is 4 hours long.
like they were playing multiple times, almost 5-hour rounds. Like I'm not trying to call them out or anything, but
It's ridiculous. It's
maybe they
disrespectful
didn't actually win their rounds, because if you're
It's
playing 40 minutes
disrespectful to other
overtime,
people at your tournament that you don't care about their experience.
that's what it is. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I
And that's on
but
the organizers more than
That's on
stats.
FLG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're
Like
saying.
anyone who is playing in overtime, who is not playing on a clock, who is a serious competitor, it's very much on you, and you should be suffering the consequences for that. But our begrudgance comes down to the leadership at FLG for not holding everyone to that, because that is making everyone's tournament experience worse because a couple players are having an issue. I would crucify those players. Whatever you got to do, their experience can be bad if they're the ones breaking the rules.
I think there's some compromise to be had on a 5-man team event as opposed to an 8-man. I think 8-man, I agree with you guys. 4 hours is like bare minimum. On a 5-man, I think you could probably get away with 3.5-hour rounds, including pairings.
Totally.
Because I think if you're only
Yeah.
running 5 rounds over the course of a weekend, if you're doing 4 hours over 2 days, or 4-hour rounds over 2 days, you only get 4 games in. It's a little dicey. I'd rather see the 5 games personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to how many teams you're able to attract. It's very, very easy to get excited about a 5-round GT if you're used to running 5-round GTs, and then realize that 5 rounds, you would need 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 teams to need 5 for a true undefeated for sure. That's 110 players, right? If you have closer to 55 players, 4 rounds is fine. It feels weird and like kind of a bummer to not play as much Warhammer, but if you have like 16 teams of 5, it's still 80 people, right? Like, if you have only 80 players at your GT, you only need 4 rounds for a 5-team event. All right. Next logistical question. Do you think team events would be improved by removing secret missions? I'm going to say maybe, but making the game more different from singles is a bad idea. We want the game to be as normal Warhammer as possible, and having very fundamental aspects to the way the game is played not be used there is weird. I think WTC forbid gambits, and I don't think that was entirely unreasonable of them, partially just because there was so much new in 10th edition at once, and that seemed like a bit of a meme thing that hopefully no one was trying to exploit, but like just better safe than sorry. But at this stage in the game, I think that you're editorializing the game a little bit too much if you're taking out secret missions. Any dissenting opinions on that? Mm-hmm.
No, I just
want to say, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you go first.
This is just 1 year. If it sucks, just wait. Like, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as Gambits. I was just shitting on secret missions. I do think it's like makes it a little bit more boring. It's temporary.
Yeah. I just think they should go from the whole game entirely, not so much about the teams format. They're not interesting. They're supposed to like be a comeback mechanic, but they're just a draw mechanic more than anything.
One thing that's slightly tangential, I don't think it's fully on topic within secret missions, but one of the things I think I brought up on day 3 is that it felt like a lot of the aspects of 40K, you know, they're random, right? Terrain choice and like just matchups, but that's kind of curated within teams. But going first and going second, that's such a huge deal, especially with Pariah Nexus. I was left wondering if there's like any way you could also curate that process as to whether one army or the other goes first, but it's kind of hard because some armies are so dependent on that. I don't know. But it was just like some food for thought. Like, is there some way that you can curate the process so it's not so volatile and that everybody feels like comfortable and they know what's happening as they go into their game?
Just bring 1990 points.
I think the randomness is part of the fun of it, right? Like if everyone knew what to expect going in, it would be even more bland than we are right now. I like that there's a little volatility, and you can just account for that in your matrix.
I appreciate your
But
fresh
I see
ideas
your
from
point.
your fresh perspective, Ian.
Fuck your
But
stupid
yeah,
ideas.
Very cool. All right. And then another good question coming in here from Tim asks, when is the latest TOs should leave rules cutoff point for their event? I think for teams in particular, like a month out at least. It is really tricky to build a team comp that either incorporates or is ready for an entirely fresh army. And you need to have time to build matrices. So you need to have time that lists are out. So if you want to have lists open 2 weeks before the event, which seems like the bare minimum to me, that means that you want to have lists in a couple days before that. And ideally you'll have rules lock a little bit before that. because you want to have at least a week between rules lock and list lock, so that if people are going to use the rules that just came out, they have a chance to get familiar with them. So a month feels like a long time, but I think logistically that's kind of the reality of the situation. Other thoughts, if any?
I agree with Tyler with a caveat for like game ruining experiences. Like hypothetically, say there was a team event. I know WTC had it, but say this was like WTC last year, right after Eldar gets nerfed, but the rules cutoff was beforehand. I would think for the health of the game and not having a fake meta, you would do that. But that's only in certain circumstances where you have things actually ruining the game and you have a chance of fixing your meta, even if it fucks up your rules cutoff. But otherwise, yeah, I would say like 3 weeks to a month is probably the most important.
Totally. All right, sweet. This next question comes in from Tim again. Asked, should Champions Cup and growing team events like it separate teams into tiers to avoid significant mismatches in skill and preparedness? I don't really think so. I think this is A, incredibly difficult to track, and B, kind of a feels bad for a lot of teams, especially teams of very competent players who may just not match up to whatever metrics they're looking at, whether it's ELO because they play a lot of teams, or ITC stuff because they play a lot of teams, or just a lot of their events are smaller. I think that Swiss pairings can be reevaluated. I think that we've kind of settled on singles, on random win path making a lot more sense in terms of pairings, and Swiss feels especially weird in teams where which team you're running into is such a big deal. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me to be doing Swiss for that. I think we should treat it just like singles, but yeah, tiering, I think, makes sense in WTC in particular, where every team has several years of history that we can look back on and creates a more fun and cinematic experience where, there's this big warm-up period and then the Titans start clashing. But in something like a Champions Cup, or certainly anything smaller than it, I would not consider this a good idea in the first place.
Also, you get better by playing against better people than you. So there was a team at Champions Cup that got smashed by a bunch of really good players and then left that event and went, we're going to do better next time. We learned a whole bunch from these people. Now we know the proper way to prepare. Now we know the proper way to play the game. And you're improving the community by doing that. If you start dividing people off, you're just fracturing people more.
Yeah, getting your ass handed to you by StatCheck, you see 100 million ways of like, oh, this is how you do teams. Oh, this is how you do pairings. This is how you pick tables. Like, you learn so much from that. And if you tell people they're in doggy doo-doo tier before they even come to the event, like, you completely miss that boat.
Yeah. Also, getting your asses smashed can still be a ton of fun, right? Especially if we're in a team setting, you see that the round is going poorly for everyone. You and your opponent are learning and having a good time. Like, it's not necessary. Cool. Taus has 2 questions for us at the end here. First off, which team do you consider your rivals, and why should they change their name to the Rhododendron City Rapscallions? We almost sent that team, but unfortunately we couldn't get our second 8 together over here.
I mean, I like Riverside Ripper Swarms. That was some nice alliteration.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty close. For a while there, I thought they were River City Ripper Swarms, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. But they definitely have our foil there. Cool. And last question here. Question for Steve. How have you been finding both the Aussie citizenship application process and their WTC application process?
The Aussie boys understand me. We have an understanding of Chad, durable, speedy infantry boys. It's good down under.
They just forgot the 2 most important models in the list. Like clerical error.
Maybe.
I don't want to scout my Terminators, and I don't want to give them full reels to hit.
No, fuck it sucks, dude.
Got to take more jackals, man. It's very important.
Took some 8 pound.
Took some 8 pound. Oh, that's certainly a unit.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway, we are over 2.5 hours in, so we are gonna wrap this up. Does anyone have any closing thoughts before we sign off on the show for the week?
I had a great time playing with all you guys at the event, and was awesome.
I did too. Thanks, team.
Yeah, incredible
Same.
experience. Thank you.
I appreciate that we had our little huddle at the end. I think no one else did that. And I think that they missed out.
It was very fun.
Absolutely. Hell yeah, boys. Well, I'm really glad that every single one of you was a part of this. I think we did a really great job. Steve, your cat is adorable. Everyone worked real hard for this, and it was a lot. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is going to look like next time around. So, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Tyler. He's been Lucas, he's been John, he's been Alex, he's been Ryan, he's been Steve, he's been Max, and he's been Ian. And we will see you all next time for some more wonderful Warhammer content. This has been Take All Comers. Take care, everyone.
Tyler, you're a traitor to the USA.